Meanwhile, Luffy's ship was still heading toward Marine headquarters. As the time for Ace's execution was drawing near, the Marines began bringing Ace to the execution platform, while the whole world was watching Marineford. No one knew whether Whitebeard or the Marines would win, because in the past, Marineford had once been half-destroyed by Shiki the Golden Lion. Over at Sabodi Archipelago, many reporters and citizens were watching via livestream. They saw the Marines' strongest forces, which left them in awe, while Ace was being brought to the execution stand. At that moment, Garp was furious, because he opposed Ace's execution. But Sengoku said this held great significance for the future, and Garp had to take responsibility. This left Garp feeling powerless as he walked away. At that moment, over 100,000 Marine soldiers had gathered, along with 50 Marine ships surrounding Marineford. And at the center stood the 5 warlords of the sea. They were the key force of the Marines. Then came the 3 admirals. They were the strongest individuals in the Marine force. This made the Marines extremely excited. At that moment, Ace was remembering the words he once said to Luffy. "One day we'll set sail. And we'll live freer than anyone else." Meanwhile, Luffy had spotted the gates of justice, which made him very happy. But Jinbei didn't know how to get through the gate. By now, Ace had been brought outside, which made the Marines nervous, because he was the cause of this entire war. And Ace was placed on the execution platform. Suddenly, the fleet admiral appeared, surprising the Marines. Sengoku began announcing to the world the identity of Ace's father, which made Garp anxious. He had known this moment would come. But Ace claimed his father was Whitebeard. However, Sengoku revealed the truth to the entire world. Ace's mother had sacrificed her life to protect him. Her name was Portgas de Rouge. She carried Ace in her womb for 20 months, which exhausted her and led to her death after giving birth. At this moment, Ace is about to be executed. With the protection of the Shichibukai and 3 Navy admirals, Sengoku announces to the world that he is the son of the Pirate King, Gol D. Roger, which shakes the entire world. Garp remembers the time when the Pirate King entrusted Ace to him for upbringing. Suddenly, many pirate ships appear, and Whitebeard's flagship emerges in the middle of the battlefield, making all the Navy soldiers terrified. Because all the captains of the Whitebeard pirates are present here, Whitebeard slowly steps onto the ship's deck. "It's been a while, Sengoku. Wait for me a little longer, Ace. Why have you all come here?" "We've come here to save Ace, because we are a family." The name Moria starts talking nonsense. "There are tens of thousands of Navy soldiers here, along with the Shichibukai and 3 admirals. What can your Whitebeard pirates do, Whitebeard?" Whitebeard immediately uses his power to create shockwaves that shatter the air, creating 2 colossal tidal waves ready to sink the entire Navy fleet, making all the Navy soldiers terrified and urinating blood. Suddenly, Aokiji jumps up and freezes the 2 tidal waves. Whitebeard throws a punch in retaliation, causing half of Aokiji's face to break and fall off, freezing the entire sea in the process. Thus, Whitebeard's crew starts launching their attacks, and so, the battle begins. Suddenly, Mihawk steps forward to test the distance between him and Whitebeard. He unsheathes his black sword, one of the 12 strongest swords in the world, and strikes at Whitebeard, but Captain Jozu of the 3rd Division jumps in to intercept the attack. It turns out that he has a diamond body. At this point, Admiral Kizaru also wants to engage with Whitebeard, so he uses his light to attack him, but Marco immediately jumps in to block the attack. Since he ate the mythical zone devil fruit, it doesn't bother him at all. Marco transforms into a phoenix and launches a direct attack at Kizaru's face, but even that doesn't faze him, and he orders his gigantic army to attack. Jozu lifts a massive block of ice and throws it at them. This time, Admiral Akainu showcases his power, using his magma fist to destroy the ice block, and setting the entire battlefield on fire. A piece falls near Whitebeard, and he simply blocks it gently, and blows a cool breeze to extinguish the flames. Seeing everyone fighting, Kapi becomes scared and wets his pants. Suddenly, a giant approaches. He has oars, determined to save Ace. The Navy soldiers continuously fire cannons at oars, but it doesn't even make a scratch on him. He lifts a ship and throws it, crushing the giant enemies. Oars continues moving toward Ace, despite the Navy's constant obstruction. As for Boa Hancock, she is attacking both the pirates and the Navy, because in her heart, there is only Luffy. Suddenly, Kuma stands up to confront Oars. He compresses the air into a bear paw, and throws it at Oars, creating a tremendous explosion that heavily injures Oars. At this moment, Oars remembers his bond with Ace, who had given him a hat to shield him from the sun. So Oars continues moving forward. Unexpectedly, Doflamingo cuts off one of Or's legs, and Moria uses his shadow to attack him, causing Aura's to collapse before reaching Ace. Suddenly, Whitebeard appeared and launched a sneak attack. He immediately caught Aura's and threw him aside. Although saddened, Whitebeard couldn't afford to let Aura's sacrifice himself in vain. He ordered everyone to rush towards Aura's and protect him. As for Copy, he got scared and intended to escape. Unexpectedly, he ran into another young man being blocked by the Red Dog. Whitebeard despised those who ran away the most. Meanwhile, Doflamingo manipulated the Fat Man to attack his own allies while saying, "Pirates are evil, and the Navy represents justice, right? The one who wins is the one who defines justice." While Sengoku was preparing another plan, Garp stepped up to the execution platform and spoke with Ace. Since their youth, he had trained Ace and Luffy to become Marines. "No, I will become a pirate." While they were arguing, Luffy finished all the food. At that moment, Ace saw Garp shedding tears. "You fool. Why don't you listen to Grandpa?" Ace realized that Garp truly loved him. Suddenly, a ship fell from the sky. Luffy's group appeared, surprising everyone present. It turned out that while they were on their way here, the group encountered a tsunami created by Whitebeard, and they were frozen by Aokiji, leaving them stranded above. Upon hearing the announcement that the Navy would execute Ace immediately, they broke the ice and fell down. All Devil Fruit users sink into the sea, unable to swim up. Fortunately, Jinbei saved everyone. As they regained their composure, Luffy immediately ran to find Ace. Finally, he spotted Ace on the execution platform, making him very happy. "Ace, I'll come to rescue you." Watching Luffy accompanied by Jinbei and Crocodile, as well as the prisoners from Impel Down, the Navy began to feel uneasy. "It's that kid again, your grandson, Grap." Sengoku couldn't understand why these individuals were cooperating with Luffy. Suddenly, when Crocodile saw Whitebeard, he launched an attack on the old man, prompting Luffy to immediately intervene. Seeing Luffy's straw hat, Whitebeard recognized him as the one with whom Red-Haired had placed his bet. He then said, "You little brat, go home and play. You also want to become the Pirate King, don't you? But I'm the one who will become the Pirate King." This sent chills down the spines of the Navy personnel, because Luffy dared to challenge one of the Yonko. However, Whitebeard acknowledged the young boy. Meanwhile, Buggy and Mr. Two Bon Clay were shocked, because this brat dared to speak on equal terms with Whitebeard. Thus, Luffy launched an attack on the Navy, and everyone else joined in to support him. Admiral Kizaru stood in front of Luffy, but Ivan managed to push him away, helping Luffy escape. Suddenly, Kuma attacked Ivan, recognizing him as his former comrade. Therefore, Ivan decided to stop Kuma, letting Luffy continue. As Luffy continued his advance, he was trapped by Hina's iron fence, so he activated Gear Second and sped through. At that moment, Moria jumped down, summoning zombies to hinder Luffy. However, Jinbei used seawater to defeat them. Seeing Luffy fighting and getting injured for his sake, Ace told him, "Go back, Luffy." "No, you're my younger brother." This surprised the Navy personnel. Realizing that Roger had another child, a giant stepped forward to attack Luffy while Sengoku was revealing to the whole world. He is none other than Ace's sworn brother and the son of the revolutionary dragon. This revelation shocked everyone. As his lineage was incredibly powerful, Smoker finally understood why Dragon had saved Luffy before. The reporters immediately jumped on the drama. Whitebeard told Marco not to let Luffy die in vain. He continued to advance and attack them. Seeing everyone risking their lives for him, Ace felt helpless. The Vice Admiral continuously attacked Luffy, causing him to stretch his body to its limits. Meanwhile, Buggy was still talking big but had no idea how to escape the battlefield. Suddenly, Whitebeard recognized Buggy and asked if he was a rookie on Roger's ship. Even Whitebeard knows Buggy, which makes the prisoners idolize him even more. Luffy, Ivan, and Jinbei regrouped and unleashed a powerful combined attack on the Marines. Jinbei confronted Moria while cutting off the Marines' shadows and absorbing them to increase his strength. With a single strike, Jinbei knocked out Moria. On the other hand, Luffy faced off against Smoker but couldn't hit him because he didn't know Haki. As a result, he was slammed into the ground. Smoker declared that no one would save Luffy this time. Boa Hancock, infuriated, was about to deal with them, but when she saw Luffy, she fell for him. The Marines couldn't understand why the Pirate Empress had a connection with Luffy. She even gave the key to Luffy to save Ace, which made him very happy. Luffy hugged Hancock and ran off, leaving her infatuated and imagining a wedding with him. Suddenly, Smoker launched an attack on Luffy again, but Hancock intercepted him. Luffy continued to face Ivan while being blocked by Kuma and Doflamingo. Doflamingo revealed that Kuma had been turned into a cyborg by Dr. Vegapunk and was now the government's hunting dog. Kuma then attacked both of them, and Ivan intervened to help his teammate regain consciousness. He split himself and used a deadly blink of an eye to knock out Kuma. Ivan instructed Luffy to keep moving forward. Meanwhile, Crocodile still wanted to fight Whitebeard but was sucked in by Diamond Jozu. Doflamingo joined in and restrained Jozu. While Luffy faced off against Mihawk, he used Gear 2 to surpass him. However, Mihawk's attack caused Luffy to be pinned against a wall. Jinbei stepped in to stop Mihawk, confusing him as to why he would help Luffy. However, Mihawk knocked Jinbei down into the water. Mihawk continued to attack Luffy, so he planned to retaliate with Bazooka. However, he realized that if he attacked, he would lose both of his arms, with a single slash. Mihawk split the iceberg in half. While Doflamingo was trying to convince the crocodile guy to cooperate with him, he refused and created a sandstorm, accidentally dragging Buggy into it. As Luffy was running towards Mihawk, he spotted Buggy, so he used him as a shield. No matter how much Mihawk sliced him, he could still regenerate. Mihawk continued to chase after Luffy, but he was stopped by Vista, the captain of the Whitebeard Pirates' 5th Division. This allowed Luffy to keep moving forward. Mihawk realized that Luffy's greatest strength was his ability to turn everyone around him into his allies. Suddenly, Admiral Aokiji ordered the appearance of their forces, revealing that they were Pacifista, Kuma's duplicates. This surprised everyone due to their large numbers. Previously, there was only one who wreaked havoc among the supernovas. The Pacifista simultaneously fired laser beams across the battlefield, destroying many pirate ships and Whitebeard's forces. Witnessing the power of the Pacifista, everyone was astonished. Meanwhile, Luffy continued to advance, but he was stopped by Vice Admiral Kizaru. Fortunately, Jinbei and the captains of the Whitebeard pirates came to his aid. On Sengoku's side, he ordered the interruption of the battle's broadcast, to prevent the public from witnessing the ongoing events. Unexpectedly, a comedian earned a sea lotus snail to spread the news, continuing the live stream and attracting viewers. This infuriated Sengoku. Meanwhile, Whitebeard continued to observe from a distance, and suddenly, Squardo approached him. The two began a private conversation. Marco noticed that Squardo's behavior was strange. Suddenly, Squardo stabbed Whitebeard in the chest, shocking everyone, including the Sabao Dome audience. Marco immediately rushed in and grabbed Squardo's head. While Whitebeard began to collapse, Squardo accused Whitebeard of making a deal with the Marines, sacrificing his own allies to save Ace. Just to make Ace the Pirate King, Whitebeard realized that Akainu had deceived Squardo. Aokiji then froze the surroundings. Marco realized that Whitebeard had become weaker, as he would not have been so easily stabbed in the past. Suddenly, Whitebeard embraced Squardo, declaring his love for him, no matter how foolish he might be, as all his crew members were his family. This made Squardo burst into tears. Whitebeard then punched two mountains on the battlefield, creating an opening for everyone to retreat. However, they still insisted on trusting and fighting alongside Whitebeard, so Whitebeard jumped down and joined the battle. Sengoku warned everyone to be cautious, as Whitebeard was the strongest man in the world. The Marines fired cannons at Whitebeard, but he only blocked them with a single punch. Suddenly, a giant figure jumped down to attack Whitebeard, but he easily intercepted the attack and started clawing at the air, causing the entire Marine headquarters to tilt. Luffy saw the sea splitting apart, revealing the power of a Yonko. Finally, the earthquake stopped, and Kobe realized that half of the Marine forces were destroyed. The giant figure continued to attack Whitebeard, but a single punch made him retreat. The excited waves kept rushing towards the execution platform, but three admirals managed to stop them in time. At this moment, the pirates continued to advance. Luffy immediately stretched his arm, intending to jump to Ace's location. Unexpectedly, they unleashed a barrier that blocked him, leaving all the pirates trapped like birds in a cage. Fortunately, Oars still had an escape route. Suddenly, the Red Dog shot a bullet made of lava into the middle of the arena, continuously attacking Whitebeard's crew and causing their ice to start melting, submerging Whitebeard's pirate crew in the water. Whitebeard attempted to throw a punch, but it was not enough to break through their steel wall. Red Dog Akainu completely destroyed Whitebeard's flagship with a mighty roar. While Ace felt powerless and unable to help, Sengoku declared that Ace would be executed immediately. However, Luffy did not give up and continued to advance, with Whitebeard's crew following him, but the Marines kept firing cannons at Luffy, causing him to sink into the sea. Fortunately, Jinbei managed to save him. Unexpectedly, Oars was still alive, planning to rescue Ace. The Marines continued to attack him. At this point, Luffy asked Jinbei for help. When Kizaru was about to finish off oars, Jinbei immediately threw Luffy inside, in front of all 3 admirals. "You are reckless, son of dragon. Do you think you can surpass us?" Luffy immediately threw a mast towards them, and continuously threw rocks towards the 3 admirals. Using Gear Second, Luffy managed to pass through the 3 admirals, but unexpectedly, Kizaru caught up and kicked him with a light speed kick. While they were about to execute Ace, unexpectedly, Crocodile intervened and sent the 2 executioners flying. Doflamingo quickly decapitated him, but he immediately regenerated, so, the 2 continued their fight. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Luffy continued to advance. Suddenly, Aokiji continued to block him, thrusting his ice spear into Luffy's shoulder. Marco quickly flew over and delivered a powerful kick to him. On Whitebeard's side, another ship emerged from the water's surface, so oars quickly grabbed onto the ship and pulled it ashore, helping Whitebeard's crew approach the execution platform. When they almost reached oars, Whitebeard immediately jumped down, launching a powerful shockwave that blew away the Marines. Aokiji continued to attack Whitebeard, covering him with ice, but he couldn't withstand Whitebeard's earthquake power, so he was punched through. Suddenly, he was dealt a devastating blow from Jozu, injuring him. While Luffy was still trying to reach Ace, but continuously being blocked by the vice admirals, at this point, he had no more strength to fight. Seeing his grandson being attacked, Garp became furious. Sengoku reminded him that he was a marine. Kizaru kicked Luffy back towards Whitebeard. Although he was exhausted at this point, Luffy was determined to save Ace, so Whitebeard told him to heal the kid, while he continued to attack the Marines. Unexpectedly, he was stopped by Akainu. They engaged in a fierce battle. Marco was about to fly up and rescue Ace, but unexpectedly, Garp jumped in and punched him with a light-speed fist. Everyone realized that he was the hero of the Marines, the opponent of the Pirate King. While Whitebeard was still being held back by the Red Dog, Luffy asked Ivan to inject him with hormone. Ace, on the other hand, was crying in frustration, believing that he wasn't worth sacrificing everyone for Whitebeard. On the other hand, was growing weaker. Marco recognized that his old illness was resurfacing. He immediately rushed over to him. Unexpectedly, Kizaru launched a surprise attack on Marco. Whitebeard was struck in the chest by the Red Dog's punch. Meanwhile, Ivan advised Luffy, "If you continue fighting like this, you will die." But Luffy remained determined to save Ace, so Ivan had no choice but to inject him with hormone. This allowed Luffy to stand up again. Seeing Ace about to be executed once more, Luffy continued to push forward. Despite the constant interference from the Marines, Luffy and Ivan managed to put them to sleep. Suddenly, Kobe appeared in front of Luffy. He remembered their promise to become true Marines and face each other. But before 5 seconds could pass, Luffy punched him square in the face. Suddenly, Luffy was blocked by the pacifistas. As they were about to attack him, Boa Hancock stepped in and halted them. "How dare you lay a hand on my husband?" Meanwhile, Marco was overwhelmed by the onslaught of attacks from the pacifistas. He could no longer regenerate using his Phoenix Flames. Taking advantage of Whitebeard's injury, the Marines swarmed in to attack him, even firing a bombardment straight at his face. But Whitebeard remained unfazed. He casually swung his sword, sending the enemies flying into the sky. This made the Marines tremble in fear. However, Sengoku noted that he was injured, so the Marines continued to surround Whitebeard. But this time, all the division commanders and even Jinbei came to Whitebeard's aid. At this moment, Sengoku wanted to execute Ace immediately. Whitebeard tried to stop him, but his wounds were too severe. As the executioner's blade was about to strike Ace's neck, Luffy unintentionally activated his Conqueror's Haki, causing the 2 executioners and all the soldiers to faint. So that's Conqueror's Haki, huh? Even the 3 admirals were surprised and realized that Luffy was the one they had to eliminate. Garp, however, was not so surprised, as Luffy was his grandson after all. Ivan realized that Luffy had yet to discover this power within himself. Suddenly, Whitebeard intervened, halting the Marines, and urged everyone to give their full support to Luffy. So all the Whitebeard pirates' crew members ran forward to clear the way for him. Ivan realized that Whitebeard was putting everything on the line for Luffy. Even Mihawk tribe joined the battle. Mr. One and Crocodile also came to Luffy's aid. Thanks to their help, Luffy was getting closer to the execution platform. Ivan called for Inazuma, who used his ability to create a bridge of solid ground, allowing Luffy to reach Ace's location. All the division commanders of the Whitebeard pirates also defended him. Unexpectedly, Garp stood in front of Luffy. "Step aside, old man. If you want to pass, you must defeat me first." Luffy remembered when he was young, and Garp would take him to train with the monkeys on the mountain. hoping that he would become a strong marine in the future. But Luffy only wanted to become a pirate. Even so, Garp always loved his grandson. Now, Luffy was his enemy. He activated Gear's second and engaged in a fight with Garp. But because of the love for his two nephews, he let Luffy punch him in the face. This surprised everyone. In the end, he was still just a grandfather, Grap. Finally, Luffy stepped onto the execution platform and took the key from his wife to unlock Ace. Suddenly, Sengoku transformed into a giant Buddha, and Kizaru shot and broke Luffy's key. Unexpectedly, Mr. 3 was also there. It turned out that he was planning to escape but remembered his promise to Mr. 2 to help Straw Hat. So he pretended to be a vice admiral to assist Luffy. When Sengoku attacked, Luffy extended his body to stop the platform from collapsing. Luckily, Mr. 3 was able to create a new key and gave it to Luffy. In a critical moment, Ace was finally freed. "Why don't you ever listen to me, Luffy?" Causing everyone to rejoice in their success, Ace then used his fire powers to attack the Marines. Finally, the two of them could fight together. Ace continued to use his Mera Mera fruit powers to burn down the enemies. When they were about to escape, Aokiji appeared. After a period of helplessness, Ace finally had the opportunity to showcase his abilities. He easily countered Aokiji's attacks. Sengoku, on the other hand, was furious, seeing this as a disgrace to the Navy. At that moment, Whitebeard wanted to redeem himself, so he brought his entire fleet to block the Marine forces. Unexpectedly, Whitebeard stood in front and stopped the massive ship with just one hand because he didn't want any of his children to sacrifice themselves. Whitebeard gave his final order for everyone to retreat while he stayed behind to fend off the Marines. Whitebeard delivered a punch that shook the entire Marine headquarters. As his dream was not about wealth, power, or status, but only about having a family, Sengoku realized that Whitebeard intended to sink the entire Marine forces. At that moment, Ace knew he couldn't let everyone's sacrifice and Whitebeard's efforts be in vain, so he kneeled down to thank his father figure for protecting him all this time. Luffy and Ace then left. Unexpectedly, Akainu taunted Ace, insulting Whitebeard and calling the Whitebeard pirates a bunch of cowards. This made Ace angry, and he wouldn't allow anyone to disrespect his father figure. Ace's fire was weaker than Akainu's magma power, and he was defeated. Suddenly, Luffy couldn't move. Akainu was about to finish off Luffy when Ace immediately jumped in to protect him. As a result, Ace was punched through the chest by Akainu, angering everyone who immediately attacked Akainu. But being a user of magma, he wasn't affected. When Akainu was about to deal with Luffy again, Jinbei stepped in to stop him. Grap was also furious and approached Akainu. Sengoku realized this and intervened to stop him. "It's best if you don't let me go. Otherwise, I will kill that red dog." Meanwhile, Luffy was holding Ace. "Hey, are you okay? Say something, Ace," Luffy said. "I'm sorry, Luffy." He immediately begged everyone to help him save Ace. But with this wound through his chest, his internal organs were already burned, so no one could save him. Even Ivan said Ace couldn't be saved anymore, which made Luffy blame Ace, telling him he couldn't die. Since childhood, Ace had always thought that he was hated by everyone. But now he received the love of everyone. So he had a life without regrets. "Thank you, Luffy." Finally, Ace fell in front of Luffy, causing everyone to feel pain. At this moment, Luffy fell into despair. Seeing his older brother leave in front of him, everyone cried for Ace, unable to believe what was happening before their eyes. Luffy was in extreme agony, to the point of becoming unconscious. Akainu took advantage of this opportunity to deal with Luffy, but Marco immediately blocked him, and told everyone to protect Luffy in place of Ace. Suddenly, Whitebeard appeared behind Akainu, and threw a punch that crushed him to the ground. But he still tried to stand up and punch through Whitebeard's body. To avenge Ace, he continued to grab Akainu by the neck and threw him into the sky, giving him a powerful punch that caused the entire Marine headquarters to collapse, making him fall into the abyss. That punch created a boundary on the ground. Marco realized that Whitebeard wanted to stay behind for the crew to leave, so he ordered everyone to get on the ship. While Jinbei was trying to take Luffy away, Blackbeard and his pirate crew appeared. He came here to witness the death of Whitebeard, which made Whitebeard angry and he attacked this traitor. But surprisingly, it didn't affect them at all. Whitebeard blamed him for betraying and causing Ace to be captured. So Whitebeard was determined to deal with him. Unexpectedly, he had eaten the Darkness Devil fruit, which allowed him to easily absorb Whitebeard's punch. So he took out his sword and struck him, and grabbed his neck to punish this unruly person, thinking that he had defeated Blackbeard. But he was still able to stand up. Although exhausted, Whitebeard had to deal with this guy properly. Unexpectedly, their entire crew started attacking Whitebeard, continuously stabbing, slashing, and shooting at him, leaving Marco's group powerless and just watching. When they were all attacking with their swords, they didn't expect Whitebeard to still be alive. At this moment, Whitebeard remembered what Roger had said to him, the meaning of the letter D. He thought that person was Blackbeard. But now he realized that the one who carried the will of D was Luffy, and he declared to the world that the One Piece treasure truly exists, surprising the whole world. Finally, Whitebeard died standing. Despite suffering many injuries during the battle, there was not a single scar on his back. At this point, everyone could only leave helplessly, while Blackbeard covered Whitebeard's body with a cloth. Meanwhile, Jinbei was trying to take Luffy away from there. Surprisingly, Akainu is still alive. He is determined to kill Luffy, so Ivan steps in to block him and help Luffy. On the other side, Blackbeard is also getting ready to perform. Unexpectedly, in addition to his Dark Devil Fruit power, he has acquired Whitebeard's Earthquake Devil Fruit. He throws a punch that shatters the entire marine forces once again, leaving everyone in disbelief that someone could possess 2 devil fruits. Seeing all the marines in despair, he continues his onslaught, but suddenly, Sengoku punches him, restoring the morale of the marine forces to continue the battle. Akainu also delivers a powerful blow to Ivan, causing him to chase after Luffy. Jinbei realizes that Aokiji has frozen the sea to block their escape route, and Akainu attacks him, stabbing through Jinbei and Luffy's chests, causing Luffy to lose his straw hat. Despite their serious injuries, Jinbei is determined to protect Luffy. Unexpectedly, Crocodile manages to appear in time and blows both of them away. Coincidentally, they crash into Buggy, and the escaped prisoners fall into an illusory trap. At the same time, the captains of the Whitebeard pirates arrive to stop Akainu and allow Buggy to take him away. Suddenly, a submarine emerges, and Law tells Buggy to hand over Luffy to him. Why should we trust you? Because I am a doctor. Meanwhile, Blackbeard is battling Sengoku, using his Quake Fruit power to block Sengoku's shockwaves. Garp also steps in to deal with this situation. Surprisingly, he possesses air powers like Whitebeard, causing the sky and the ground to tremble. Meanwhile, Kapi overhears the cries of the people, making him desperate and unable to understand what they are fighting for. He sees too many people dying, people who have families. Buggy is still hesitant, but then he is attacked by Admiral Kizaru, forcing him to hand over Luffy and Jinbei to Law. When Akainu tries to attack the ship, Kapi steps in to stop him, realizing that this battle is meaningless and too many lives have been lost. But Akainu doesn't care who he is. As he tries to strike Kapi, suddenly Shanks appears. Ben Beckman aims his gun at Kizaru, picks up Luffy's straw hat, and says, "We're here to end this battle." This surprises the Marines, as they recognize him as one of the 4 emperors, someone who was fighting against Kaido yesterday and is now here. As soon as Buggy sees Shanks, he asks him to deliver the hat to Luffy, promising to give him a treasure map in return. This convinces Buggy to run and hand it over to Law, so Law's submarine dives into the sea, while Law is trying to perform surgery on Luffy. Meanwhile, Aokiji doesn't give up and continues freezing the sea. Fortunately, everyone manages to escape. However, Buggy realizes that Shanks tricked him, which makes him furious. The prisoners, witnessing Buggy insulting Shanks, start to admire Buggy even more. Mihawk begin to leave, as fighting Shank was not part of their agreement. At this moment, Shank steps onto the battlefield. "Whoever still wants to fight, face us. Come and fight us," instantly striking fear into all the Marines. As they are not strong enough to continue battling another Yonko, Blackbeard then taunts Shanks, saying, "That scar suits you well," making the situation even more tense. However, Blackbeard agrees to leave, and he said, "I've got what I need." Now, Shanks is only waiting for the Navy's response. Seeing the deaths of Ace and Whitebeard, he realizes the intensity of this battle. So, Shanks says, "Hand everything over to us. We will take care of burying Ace and Whitebeard," enraging the Marines. But, Sengoku agrees, and he said he would only do this one thing with Shank, causing everyone to be surprised. So, Sengoku declared, "The battle has ended." Thus, the Navy immediately begins treating the wounded, while Shanks takes the bodies of Ace and Whitebeard away. At this moment, people all over the world are awaiting the outcome of the battle. Upon hearing that the Navy has emerged victorious, bringing joy to everyone, on Sabodi Island, all the citizens are rejoicing, as the era of Whitebeard pirates has come to an end. Outside Marineford, pirates from the worst generation have gathered here to watch the battle. They realize that with Whitebeard's death, now is their time to shine. News of Marineford's victory spreads worldwide, bringing happiness to all. as they have always trusted in the Navy and the world government. On Sengoku's side, he receives news from Impel Down Prison that many dangerous level 6 prisoners have escaped with Blackbeard's help. He intends to announce this information to the public, but the world government wants to cover it up. Law's pirate crew has managed to escape from Marineford. Unexpectedly, they are unexpectedly pursued by a Navy ship. They realize that she is Pirate Empress Boa Hancock, but she has petrified the entire Navy on the ship. At this moment, she is very worried about Luffy. Suddenly, Law steps forward and says, although temporarily, Luffy has survived, but his injuries are severe, making Hancock even more worried. Then, Ivankov informs them that Luffy's body had reached its limit since his time in Impel Down, yet, he still came here to save his brother, only to witness Ace's death before him, which devastated him. At this moment, Jinbei steps forward, despite his heavy injuries, but he is also deeply concerned for Luffy, as seeing Ace die in front of him has deeply affected him. Boa Hancock realizes that Luffy is still being hunted by the world government, so she suggests taking him to the Island of Women, where he will be safe. The Navy thought that with Whitebeard's death, piracy would decrease, but instead, pirates increased in number, as Whitebeard proclaimed the true existence of One Piece before his death. In the territories protected by Whitebeard, the civilians are being attacked by other pirates, because with Whitebeard dead, there's no one left to protect them, while Boa Hancock decides to take Luffy to the Island of Women. Ivankov bids farewell to Jinbei, asking him to take care of Luffy, as it was thanks to Luffy that they were able to escape Impel Down. Finally, Luffy is taken to the Island of Women. When the citizens saw their queen return, that made them very happy, while Law's group was very excited, because it's an island of women. Boa Hancock decides to take Luffy to the castle for care, but she is stopped by Elder Nyan, who says no men other than Luffy can be allowed on the island, even if they're doctors. But Law points out that if Luffy's wound is reopened, he will die, which worries Hancock. So, Elder Nyan decides they will stay behind the island, waiting for Luffy to recover, while the islanders bring food every day, much to Law's crew's delight, but they don't want too much interaction with men. Boa Hancock is deeply concerned for Luffy, while Luffy dreams of Ace, and witnessing his death, which shocks him awake, so, he jumps out of Law's submarine, surprising everyone. Luffy keeps asking, "Where's Ace?" as he continuously runs around searching for him. Law tells Jinbei that if Luffy's wound opens, he will die, while Luffy remains out of control. Boa Hancock is overjoyed to hear Luffy waking up, deciding to cook for him. At this moment, Luffy runs into the forest. When he doesn't know where he is, Luffy remembers Ace, and realizing that he's truly dead, this makes Luffy continue to go crazy, even banging his head against the rock, to try to forget Ace's death. Suddenly, Jinbei arrives, remembering his promise to Ace, "If I die, please help take care of my little brother." Seeing Luffy in agony, Jinbei intends to tell him everything, but Luffy asks, "Ace really died, didn't he?" "Yes, he's dead," prompting Luffy to burst into loud tears. At this moment, Luffy remembers his childhood, when he was scolded by his grandfather for eating the devil fruit mistakenly, and his grandfather wanted both Luffy and Ace to become strong marines. While Luffy doesn't understand, why does he, being a rubber human, still feel pain? But Luffy is determined to become a pirate anyway, so Grap takes Luffy to a house on the mountain, which turns out to be Da Dan's family home. Seeing Grap, they become frightened, as they are mountain bandits. Da Dan explains that Ace is now 10 years old, so they can't take care of him anymore. Unexpectedly, this time Grap wants them to take care of Luffy too, knowing he's Grap's grandson, which surprises them, so they immediately refuse. Although Grap threatens to put them in jail, they believe being in jail is still better than taking care of Ace. Now, they have to take care of Luffy as well. Suddenly, Luffy gets someone spitting foam in his face. It makes him angry. Grap realizes it's Ace, and says, "From now on, you will live with Ace," while Luffy tries to make Ace apologize to him. Da Dan still refuses to take care of Luffy, but when threatened by Grap, they have no choice but to accept. At this point, Luffy still wants Ace to apologize to him. Da Dan then brings food for everyone. Seeing lots of meat, Luffy wants to eat too, but he can't compete with them, even being looked down upon by a dog. So, Luffy can only eat a small bowl of rice. While Ace eats comfortably, Da Dan explains that all this food was brought by Ace. If Luffy wants to eat, tomorrow, he'll have to work hard and plunder as well. Unexpectedly, Luffy immediately agrees to, because his dream is to become a pirate someday. Seeing Ace going outside, Luffy follows him, which makes Ace uncomfortable. Turns out, Luffy isn't angry at Ace for spitting on his face anymore, because he wants to be like Shank. So, Luffy proposes to be friends with Ace, but Ace immediately kicks a tree, making it roll towards Luffy, thinking Luffy won't follow him anymore. However, when they reach a bridge, Luffy still follows him. So, Ace immediately attacked Luffy, causing him to fall into the deep abyss below. By evening, Ace brings back food again, but Luffy is nowhere to be found. While Ace is bathing, he remembers the disdainful words of others towards Roger. At this moment, Ace overhears Dan saying that if Luffy dies, she will tell Grapp it was an accident, because he's also a devil's child. Unexpectedly, a week later, Luffy finds his way back on his own, making Dan furious, asking him where he has been. But Luffy refuses to say. So, Dan sends him to bed. The next morning, Luffy continues to chase after Ace, to make him be friends with him. But Ace runs very fast, thus, Luffy can't catch up, even almost being eaten by crocodiles. Nevertheless, the next day, Luffy still continues to chase after Ace, but he was stoned by Ace. The following day, Ace leads him into a dangerous forest. However, Luffy still doesn't give up. Every day, he pursues Ace, and 2 months pass by. While Dan wonders why Luffy keeps chasing after Ace relentlessly, making her worried, because every time Luffy returns, he's injured. Surprisingly, this time he got stung by a bee, resulting in his face swelling up like a ball. At this point, Ace also realizes how stubborn Luffy is. While Luffy is searching for Ace, he encounters a giant tiger. Ace realized it was the strongest beast of this mountain, seeing Luffy terrified. So, Ace decided to rescue him. Unexpectedly, a giant bear appeared. Seizing the opportunity, Luffy immediately fled. Finally, Luffy is safe, but in the following days, he continues to chase after Ace, despite Dan's attempts to stop him. But Luffy still didn't give up. Now, he has reached the end of the forest, and Luffy sees the gray terminal dump site. It's a large dump site emitting gray smoke, reserved for the poor and criminals. Luffy rushes inside to find Ace. Meanwhile, Ace notices 2 individuals, seeing they have money, so Ace immediately stole their money. At this moment, Luffy continues his search for Ace, and finally spots him running into the forest. So, Ace met one of his friends. Turns out, his name is Sabodi, and both of them competed to see who could steal more treasures, which surprises Sabodi, because this time Ace won against him. Turns out both of them from 5 years ago stole the treasure and brought it here, and earned money to buy a large ship to become pirates. Unexpectedly, they were discovered by Luffy, realizing both of them also wanted to become pirates. So, Luffy wants to join them. Both of them immediately punched and caught him. Sabodi recognizes him as the kid who always chases after Ace. At this point, Luffy knows the secret of both of them. So, Ace and Sabodi decide to kill him, making Luffy terrified and scream. But they've never killed anyone before, so they don't know how. By chance, Luffy's scream is heard by a group of pirates, who are also looking for Ace and Sabodi, because Ace stole their money. At this point, both of them release Luffy, and are trying to find a way to escape, because they were no match for them. Unexpectedly, Luffy disappears. Turns out, he has been caught by them. So, Luffy cries out for Ace to save him. Realizing Luffy knows where Ace is hiding the treasure, he forces Luffy to confess. While both of them worry that Luffy will reveal the treasure's location, unexpectedly, Luffy claims he doesn't know, so they capture Luffy. At this point, he brings Luffy back to the gray terminal dump site, and used a large hammer to strike him. But Luffy is a rubber human, so his hammer had no effect, and he decided to torture Luffy in another way. While Ace and Sabodi were trying to collect the hidden treasure elsewhere, he used spiked gloves to torture Luffy, forcing him to reveal the treasure's location, causing Luffy great pain. But he still refused to confess, so he continued to beat him. By evening, Ace had hidden the treasure elsewhere. Suddenly, Sabodi ran back to inform him that Luffy still hadn't revealed anything to them, and was still being tortured, making Ace worried. At this point, he continued to beat Luffy relentlessly, but no matter how hard he hit him, Luffy still refused to say anything, making him angry, and deciding to kill him. Unexpectedly, Ace and Sabodi immediately appeared. Ace then attacked him, but he was caught by him. Sabodi then struck him on the head to save Ace. At this moment, Ace continued to fight him, to let Sabo rescue Luffy. Unexpectedly, Ace didn't want to run away, so Sabo decided to stay and fight him. By nightfall, they had emerged victorious. The captain, Blue Jam, saw his subordinates being defeated, making him furious and determined to find Ace to get the money back. On Luffy's side, he was crying and thanking Ace for saving him, which made Ace uncomfortable, and he asked, "Why didn't you reveal everything to them from the beginning?" But Luffy was afraid that if he did, Ace wouldn't be his friend anymore. Ace realized that Luffy didn't have parents like him, and going with Ace made Luffy feel very comfortable. So, Ace remembered all the criticism from everyone, saying he was the son of a devil, and didn't deserve to live in this world. But, Luffy wanted Ace to live, which changed Ace's thoughts about Luffy. Thus, he blamed Luffy for being too weak and just crying. But, Luffy said he was only 7 years old, and if he were 10 like Ace, he would definitely be stronger. Seeing both of them arguing, Sabo immediately stopped them, because they were surely being searched for by Blue Jam now, so they couldn't stay in Grey Terminal anymore. The next morning, Dan discovered another kid in the house, which shocked her, but Sabo was very smart and knew how to win Dan over, so she agreed to let Sabo stay on the condition that all three had to do household chores. Unexpectedly, they immediately ran outside. At this point, all three of them had breakfast. Sabo was curious about what devil fruit Luffy had eaten. So, Luffy said, "I ate the Gomu Gomu fruit." But Ace said Luffy's devil fruit was too weak, which made Luffy angry, while Sabo found Luffy's rubber body very interesting. Thus, Luffy immediately inflated his body to show Sabo. Unexpectedly, he was kicked by Ace like a soccer ball, causing Luffy to fall into the water and be swallowed by a crocodile. So, they immediately caught the crocodile to rescue Luffy. Thanks to that, they brought back crocodile meat for Dan that night. The next morning, Luffy fought with Ace, but he still didn't know how to use his power, so he was continuously defeated by Ace. Then, it was Ace's turn to fight Sabo. However, Sabo was also defeated by him. This time, Sabo fought with Luffy, but Luffy still couldn't apply his devil fruit power in battle, and he was defeated by Sabo. Ace continued to criticize Luffy's useless power, but Luffy said that when he was 10 years old, he would surely win them, so they all went to look for food together. And when they saw a herd of crocodiles, Luffy jumped down, and all three managed to defeat a crocodile. Inside the Grey Terminal, there was a very large wall, separating the city from the slum area, so Ace brought the crocodile into the city to sell it. Suddenly, they encountered a group of thugs. Thus, all three of them decided to fight them. Turns out, in the middle of this city is a place reserved for the wealthy, and this place is the center of the Goa Kingdom. It turns out that Luffy's village is just a small area forgotten by this kingdom. Outside the kingdom's walls is the Grey Terminal, a place for the poor and criminals, while inside is reserved for the wealthy and aristocrats. At this moment, all three had pretended to be VIP guests to enter a restaurant for a meal, which they enjoyed very much, but because they ate too much, they were discovered by the restaurant owner, so all three jumped out the window to escape. Suddenly, a man saw Sabo, thus, he told Sabo to go home. But, Sabo didn't care and continued to run away. At this point, Luffy and Ace realized that Sabo was hiding something, so they pressured Sabo to speak. It turns out Sabo is from an aristocratic family, and the man who called him was Sabo's father. Before, he always forced Sabo to study hard so he could marry the royal daughter. While out, Sabo encountered a royal brat, who demanded Sabo to carry him home, but Sabo refused and pushed him away, which angered him. So, the two of them fought each other. This incident made Sabo's mother angry. At this point, he realized that his parents only cared about their status and wealth. Thus, Sabo secretly went outside the Grey Terminal to listen to the people there talking about the outside world. At this moment, Sabo declared to Ace and Luffy, "One day, I will set sail and become a powerful pirate, and I will write a book about this world." It made Luffy and Ace excited. So, Ace also said, "I will become a famous pirate, to make everyone in the world unable to deny his existence." Luffy also immediately voiced his dream. Surprisingly, it made Ace and Sabo burst into laughter, as they considered it a whimsical dream. At that moment, Ace took out Dan's bottle of sake, saying that when they drank from this cup together, the three of them would become brothers, making them very happy. They clinked their cups and drank together. The next morning, when Dan woke up, she found herself trapped in a pitfall. It turned out that Luffy's group had dug this hole to catch wild boars. while all three of them had gone into town to fight the thugs. Unexpectedly, they were spotted by the police. So, Ace immediately told everyone to run away. By evening, the three of them had captured a deer for Da Dan. When there's food, they joined everyone here in a scramble for food. That makes Da Dan angry because these kids are too noisy. After finishing their meal, she had to clean up again. Unexpectedly, Luffy's group continued to wreak havoc. It made Da Dan very annoyed. By evening, she was finally able to go to bed. On the upper side, Luffy's group still wanted to fight each other. At this moment, Da Dan was reminiscing about her youth. Unexpectedly, she got hit by Luffy, which made Da Dan very angry. So, the next morning she had to find a way to chase them away. Thinking it was Grap's doing, making Da Dan scared, it turned out that the village chief and Makino came to visit Luffy. Seeing Makino come made Luffy very happy. She brought Luffy a new outfit. She even brought new outfits for Sabo and Ace. But, Ace was very shy around Makino. So, Luffy and Sabo teased him. Then, Makino cooked food for everyone, making them very happy. Unexpectedly, there was someone trapped outside. While Ace and Luffy were talking about becoming pirates for sure, unexpectedly, Grap appeared, surprising everyone. So, he immediately hit Luffy and Ace, even hit Da Dan, for not disciplining the brats properly. At this moment, Sabo realized that this was Ace and Luffy's grandfather. Seeing Luffy still determined to become a pirate, so, he continued to beat all three, making Sabo feel like he was a monster. At this moment, when Grap and everyone went to sleep, Ace realized that if they stayed here, they would be killed. Thus, all three decided to plan their escape. The next morning, Da Dan discovered that Luffy's group had left, but Grap didn't care because his time off had expired. So, Grap assigned the task of training them to become Marines to Da Dan. But when Grap left, Da Dan didn't care either. On Luffy's side, they were caught in the rain. Thus, all three immediately sought shelter, while Da Dan realized that the rain was worrying. So, she decided to look for Luffy's group. By this time, the rain had stopped. Sabo decided to establish a base here. So, all three of them started running towards the junkyard to collect scrap wood, and they began building the base, while Da Dan was anxiously searching for them. Finally, Luffy's group's base was completed, making all three very excited, because they could see the whole island from up high. At this time, Dogra and Magra found Luffy's group, so they ran back to inform Da Dan, although she pretended not to care outside. But, that night Da Dan went to Luffy's group's base, making her very happy that they were still safe. Unexpectedly, Da Dan fell into a trap, and she was kicked out, making Da Dan furious, and saying she would never come here again. At this moment, winter had arrived. So, Luffy's group hunted a snow bear together. Unexpectedly, Luffy managed to defeat it, making him very happy. Suddenly, a giant tiger appeared, making Luffy anxious. Sabo realized it just wanted to take Luffy's bear, but Luffy insisted on not letting it take his food, so Luffy kept blocking it. Luckily, Ace and Sabo managed to take Luffy away. By evening, they found other food, but Luffy still felt uncomfortable because the tiger had taken his food. Unexpectedly, Luffy fell off the bridge. Luckily, Sabo and Ace caught him. By nightfall, Luffy remembered when Ace and Sabo helped him. He felt they were really good brothers, so Luffy imagined, in the future, he would be the captain of both of them, which made him very happy. Thus, Luffy told both of them that they would be his crewmates in the future. But, Ace and Sabo didn't want to work for anyone. So, Luffy proposed, if anyone defeated that tiger first, that person would become the captain. So, they agreed. The next morning, all three went to find the tiger together. Unexpectedly, a bear appeared, making Luffy disappointed. But, Ace said this bear was as strong as the tiger. Thus, they decided to defeat this bear. Ace attacked it. Unexpectedly, it made the bear angry, so it immediately chased all three. Luffy thought he was going to die. Suddenly, the bear was attacked. An old man appeared, surprising all three. When the bear continued to attack him, he used Conqueror's Haki, making the bear stop, so he chased it back into the forest. Luffy realized this man's power was like Shanks. By nightfall, they grilled fish to eat. Luffy and Sabo were very surprised, because this old man used to be a pirate captain, and he now picked up trash every day. He even got bullied by others. But, Sabo didn't expect him to be so strong. At this point, Ace asked, "Why would a pirate like you be here?" Thus, he told them, it turns out he once fought against Pirate King Roger, but he lost, causing his pirate crew to disband, so, he ended up stranded here. Even though he lost, he still recognized Roger's pirate crew as very powerful. Sabo realized Ace had left. Suddenly, Luffy asked the old man to train him, so he agreed. At this point, Sabo told Luffy that Roger was Ace's father, making Luffy surprised. But he didn't like Roger, so Sabo warned Luffy not to mention Roger in front of Ace. Unexpectedly, as soon as they got home, Luffy immediately talked about Roger, making Ace angry and hitting both of them. So, all three continued to fight each other. That night they decided they were no longer brothers. On Blue Jam's side, he was still searching for Sabo, because his father hired him to find his son. The next day, they continued to look for the tiger to defeat it, but the tiger was too strong. So, Ace and Sabo were chased by the tiger. Eventually, they managed to escape from the tiger. Sabo didn't know how Luffy was doing now, because he had gone to the old man's training place, but Ace didn't care about Luffy. Suddenly, a big tree fell towards them. It turned out Luffy had cut down this tree. At this point, they returned to the old man's place. Sabo realized the old man had made a target for Luffy to practice aiming. Unexpectedly, Luffy accidentally punched him, making Sabo laugh. At this moment, Ace asked the old man, "Do you hate Roger?" However, the old man said, "I lost because I wasn't strong enough, but I am grateful to Roger." Surprising Ace, it turns out when he lost to Roger, he begged Roger to spare his crewmates. Unexpectedly, Roger left. So, he acknowledged Roger as a very great person. But Ace didn't believe him, because many people hate Roger. But the old man said they had never fought Roger, because in the pirate world, when someone loses a battle, they must die. Ace continued to ask, what if Roger had a child? He said, Roger's child would have a very difficult life. Because of their father's infamous name, Ace thought he was lying. So, Ace angrily attacked him, but he was quickly defeated by him. Thus, he told Ace to follow him to see something. Upon arriving, they were surprised to see a large ship. It turns out he went to the junkyard every day to pick up wood to build this ship. At this point, the old man asked Ace to help him complete the ship, because he would use this ship to set sail and find his former crewmates. So, Ace agreed to help him. The next morning, they collected wood together to help him build the ship, and the old man also taught all three of them many things. At this point, both Ace and Sabo had improved a lot, but only Luffy still accidentally punched the old man, making him angry. So, he told them to become a captain. It's not just about strength. They also need something more important, making all three curious, but he forgot what that was. By evening, Ace still couldn't sleep, so he immediately went to find the old man to ask what the important thing to become a captain is, but he didn't know either. He only knew that in the end, the crew still called him captain. So, to become a captain, he needed the acceptance of the crew members. The next day, the old man's ship was also completed. Thus, he was very grateful to Luffy's group for helping him. So, he decided to help all three hunt down that tiger, making them very excited. Thus, all three went into the forest together to find the tiger. When the tiger appeared, Ace immediately attacked it, but he was knocked away by it. Then, it was Sabo's turn to catch the tiger with a fishing rod, but he also couldn't hold onto it. So, the tiger attacked Luffy, making Luffy frightened. Seeing Luffy in danger, Ace and Sabo rushed to help him block the attack. At this point, Ace remembered the old man's words, so he told both of them to cooperate with him. While Sabo was attracting the tiger's attention, Ace used Luffy's abilities to create a powerful elastic force to push him to attack the tiger, and he defeated it. Sabo and Luffy thought Ace would become the captain, but Ace declined. Because he didn't defeat the tiger alone, the old man felt his job was done. So, he decided to leave, and he hoped to meet Luffy's group out at sea, which made them very happy. The next day, all three of them were out together searching for materials to repair their base. Suddenly, Sabo was discovered by Blue Jam. They immediately captured him. Fortunately, Ace and Luffy arrived just in time, so they fought against them together. Surprisingly, Blue Jam's gang was very strong, and they quickly captured the entire group. At that moment, soldiers also arrived. It turned out that Sabo's father had hired them to bring Sabo back. He didn't want Ace and Luffy to be in danger, so Sabo agreed to return with him, which made Ace and Luffy angry, as Sabo always wanted a life of freedom. Even though he didn't want to, he was forced to return. Blue Jam unexpectedly captured Ace and Luffy and brought them to his base. There, Blue Jam claimed that the nobles were all deceivers, and ordered Luffy and Ace to work for him, transporting his goods to locations marked on this map. Surprisingly, Ace agreed, but he had to pay them. So, Ace and Luffy helped them transport the goods. On Sabodi's side, he had returned home. When he entered the house, he saw his mother leading a little boy, leaving Sabodi puzzled about who the kid was. It turns out his parents adopted Stelly to replace him. By evening, Stelly found Sabodi and told him, if he didn't return, he would die tomorrow. It turns out in 3 days the celestial dragons will come to this kingdom. So, the king decided to destroy Great Terminal, making Sabodi angry, because many people are living there. But, this kingdom only sees Great Terminal as its disgrace. So, Sabodi decided to return to Great Terminal to inform everyone. At this point, Sabodi found out Blue Jam is transporting barrels of oil and explosives to prepare for the destruction of Great Terminal. On Luffy's side, he is still worried about Sabodi, but Ace thinks it's better for him to stay there. The next morning, Sabodi realized the nobles in the city are all very comfortable. Even though they know Great Terminal is about to be destroyed, they even keep it a secret from outsiders, which shocked Sabodi, because he realizes they don't care about the life and death of the people in Great Terminal. So, he wants to immediately inform Luffy and Ace. At this moment, Sabodi is trying to run outside as fast as possible, but he was caught by soldiers. By evening, Blue Jam was telling Ace and Luffy, Great Terminal is about to be destroyed, making them very angry, because he deceived them into transporting barrels of oil. So, he asked Ace, where are your treasures hidden? On Sabodi's side, he was taken back home. Thus, his father imprisoned him in the basement, causing Sabodi a lot of pain, because he couldn't go and inform everyone. By evening, they were starting to set fire, causing the entire Great Terminal area to blaze. Even Dan on the other side of the forest could see. At this point, the residents were extremely frightened, so they tried to run into the city. But they were all stopped by soldiers. They even closed the gates, not allowing them in, leaving the people here desperate. Meanwhile, Blue Jam was very excited, because the king promised him, after he completed this task, he would become a nobleman. Unexpectedly, they've tied up Ace and Luffy again, making them caught in the flames. At this moment, Blue Jam thought they would open the door for him, but no one opened the door for him, so he realized he was deceived. It turns out the king only used him to take the blame for burning Great Terminal. Luckily, Ace managed to untie Luffy. Thus, they both ran away together from there. On Sabodi's side, he also found a way to escape, so he ran back towards Great Terminal to open the door. But Sabodi was blocked and beaten by the guards, leaving Sabodi exhausted. However, he was still worried about Ace and Luffy. Suddenly, Dragon appeared. He asked, what's up, kid? So, Sabodi told Dragon about the plan to burn down Great Terminal, and he felt ashamed to be born as nobility, surprising Dragon, because in the Goa Kingdom, there's a kid like this. On Ace and Luffy's side, they were trying to run away from there. Unexpectedly, they encountered Blue Jam, so they were surrounded by Blue Jam and his men. It turns out they wanted to know where Ace's treasure was hidden. Ace realized there was no other way, so he decided to reveal the location of the treasure to them, making Luffy very uncomfortable. It turns out they wanted to take the treasure, to come back later for revenge on the nobles, because he believed all nobles are deceitful people. But Ace said Sabodi is not like them, making Ace and Luffy angry, because he kept speaking ill of Sabodi. So, Luffy attacked them. When they were about to kill Luffy, Ace accidentally used Conqueror's Haki, making all of Blue Jam's men faint, making him angry, because he didn't know what Ace did. When he was about to kill Ace, luckily, Dan arrived in time to save him, so, Dan pushed him back, seeing Luffy injured, making everyone very worried. Blue Jam realized that Dan is a mountain bandit. Dan said, I am the foster mother of Ace and Luffy, so, I will not allow anyone to harm my children. Seeing Blue Jam still very confident, thus, they ran away. Surprisingly, Ace still wanted to stay and fight him, because he would never run away. Dan recognized this as Ace's personality, so she decided to stay and fight with him. And Dan told everyone to take Luffy away. Thus, they fought Blue Jam together. On the side of the people of Great Terminal, they were very desperate. Unexpectedly, a strong wind blew in and extinguished the fire. People saw a path leading to the sea, making them very happy. It turned out the one who saved them was Dragon. At this moment, Ivankov wondered why Dragon had special interest in this kingdom. Dragon said, I will never abandon the suffering people, and one day I will change this world. Dragon then declared to everyone, but whoever is ready to fight for freedom, come aboard the ship, which made everyone rejoice. On Luffy's side, he was still very worried about Ace. While the fire was burning fiercely, the next morning, Luffy was still determined to find Ace, but he was very seriously injured. He missed Ace and Sabo very much, while the soldiers began to clean up Grade Terminal. The nobles were still very comfortable. At this moment, Sabo woke up in an alleyway, so he tried to find a way to escape, but the soldiers were still looking for him. Unexpectedly, he was caught again, this time making Sabo's father very angry, so he decided to lock Sabo up at home and forced him to become a noble. He even threatened to harm Ace and Luffy. Thus, Sabo had to obey him. Now, Sabo was imprisoned at home, but he was still very worried about Luffy and Ace, and he wanted to regain his freedom. Suddenly, Sabo overheard the guards talking. They said the celestial dragons would come tomorrow. The next morning, Sabo planned to escape. While everyone in the city was very excited to welcome the celestial dragons, suddenly, people saw a small boat sailing out to sea. It turned out to be Sabo. At this moment, Sabo decided to become a pirate to regain his freedom. Suddenly, the celestial dragon on the ship saw Sabo, so he shot at him, because Sabo dared to block his path, although knowing there was only a child on the ship. But everyone dared not say anything, for fear that the celestial dragon would get angry. Dogra saw that Sabo was on the ship, while Sabo was trying to put out the fire. Then, the celestial dragon fired another shot at his boat, making everyone shocked. While Luffy and the others were worried about Ace and Da Dan, finally, they survived and returned, making Luffy very happy, because Ace was still alive. At this moment, Ace recounted the events of that night to everyone. It turned out they had fought Blue Jam together. In the end, they defeated him, but they didn't know how to escape from the fire, so Da Dan decided to use herself to clear the way for Ace, causing her to be severely injured. Thanks to that, they escaped from Grade Terminal. The next day, Ace went into the city to get medicine for Da Dan's treatment, so both of them survived. At this moment, Ace and Luffy were worried about Sabo. Da Dan asked Ace why he didn't run away at that time, but Ace said it was his personality. If he ran away, he would leave important things behind, and Luffy was behind him, so Ace couldn't run. Da Dan remembered what Garp once said: when Roger faced a strong opponent, he never backed down, because he didn't want people behind him to be in danger. Suddenly, Dogra returned, so he told everyone about Sabo's story, making everyone shocked. Ace always believed Sabo would be happy with his family, but he was wrong, because Sabo has never been happy returning to his family, making Ace very angry and wanting to revenge against the celestial dragons. But he was stopped by Da Dan, because he would be killed if he went there, while Luffy was in despair, because currently they couldn't do anything. The next morning, Ace calmed down. Suddenly, they received a letter from Sabo before he set sail, so Ace read it. Sabo said he would set sail as a pirate before Ace and Luffy, and hoped that one day they would meet again. Sabo instructed Ace, take good care of Luffy, although Luffy is a crybaby and fragile, but Luffy is our little brother. Finally, Ace couldn't hold back and cried. On Da Dan's side, she was angry because the entire kingdom covered up Sabo's death, while Luffy was still very sad, and he remembered the memories of all three siblings. Suddenly, Ace came and hit Luffy. At this point, Luffy said, Ace, I want to be stronger, to protect people and not lose anyone anymore. So Ace, please don't die, making Ace angry and declaring to Luffy, I will never die, because I can't leave behind a weak little brother like you. Listen Luffy, we'll have to live without regrets, and someday we'll set sail, freer than anyone else. So, both promised to set sail as pirates at the age of 17, at a village near the kingdom of Goa. Zoro was trying to train, while everyone was surprised, because there was a large ship docked near their village. Turns out that ship belonged to Dragon, surprising Ivankov, because Dragon had brought someone severely injured here. Turns out he had attended the Celestial Dragon reception earlier, at Great Terminal. After the Celestial Dragons left, everything returned to normal, and this place continued to be a dumping ground for the nobles. At this moment, Luffy was fighting with Ace, thinking he would land a punch on Ace, but Luffy hadn't made any progress yet, making Ace laugh and tease Luffy. Your rubber devil fruit really has no effect in combat, making Luffy angry and argue back. Suddenly, they remembered Sabo, who always helped them reconcile. Luffy immediately thought that Sabo made a better older brother than Ace, so both continued arguing. At this time, Da Dan received a message from Ace, saying he would establish his own kingdom. Suddenly, Luffy also sent a message. Turns out both wanted to live separately and independently. At this moment, Luffy was fighting a bear, But Ace didn't want to help Luffy. Unexpectedly, Luffy was injured by the bear, making Ace worried, so he immediately carried Luffy home for treatment. Seeing Luffy severely injured made Ace blame himself and feel guilty towards Luffy for not fulfilling his duty as an older brother. The next morning, Makino came to visit Ace and Luffy. So, Ace asked Makino to teach him how to express gratitude. Turns out Ace wanted to go see Shanks to thank him, because Shanks had helped Luffy, surprising Makino. The next day, Ace and Luffy went out to steal food again, but this time, Ace and Luffy expressed gratitude for the meal. Then, they continued training together, and both managed to defeat a giant bear, making them very happy. In the following days, they continued training together, even getting beaten up by Grap for refusing to join the Navy. 7 years later, Ace was 17 years old, while Luffy was 14 years old. So, Ace began his journey as a pirate. He bid farewell to Luffy and everyone, making everyone very happy, but only Dan didn't come to see Ace off. At this moment, Dan remembered when Grap sent Ace to her to raise, although she pretended not to care, but, knowing Ace sent his thanks to her, made Dan burst into tears. Now, only Luffy remained, so, he was determined to train for another 3 years. Unexpectedly, this time he landed a punch right on the rock, and he was determined to become even stronger. Sometime later, Luffy heard the news that Ace had formed a pirate crew, which made him very happy. 3 years later, Luffy turned 17, but Dan didn't want to see him off, because if they went down the mountain to bid farewell to Luffy, the people of Fuchsia village would be afraid of them. So, Luffy thanked them, and said, "Although I don't like mountain bandits, but I like all of you," which greatly moved Dan. At this moment, everyone in the village came to see Luffy off, making him very happy, because this time it was his turn to go to sea. Suddenly, a sea monster appeared. Luffy recognized it as the same sea monster from before. So, this time Luffy showed it his strength, and he defeated the sea monster. At this moment, Dan secretly came to see Luffy off. She felt very relieved, because Luffy had become much stronger. Back to the present, Luffy is still in great pain because of Ace's death, and he realizes he's too weak. At this moment, Dan was drinking a lot of beer at Makino's bar. Suddenly, she heard that Grap had returned. Everyone in the village came out to ask Grap about Luffy, because they were very worried about him. Unexpectedly, Dan immediately stepped forward and attacked Grap, making everyone surprised. She blamed Grap. "You were on the battlefield. Why did you let Ace die?" Dan kept hitting Grap, because he couldn't save Ace and Luffy, which made her very angry, but Makino immediately stopped Dan. She realized that Grap was also suffering, because he was there but couldn't help his grandson. No, Luffy is the one suffering the most. Makino remembered the time when she taught Ace to say thank you, because Ace intended to thank Shanks for helping Luffy. Remembering the time when the two brothers were happy together, made Makino very sad. At this moment, everyone wanted to know about Luffy's whereabouts, so, Grap told them that Luffy had escaped from Marineford, which reassured everyone. Dan said, "No matter what kind of pirate Luffy becomes, I will always stand by his side, so, don't be defeated." Luffy, on Whitebeard's island. Shanks and Marco buried Ace and Whitebeard here. At this moment, Shank also realizes Luffy is suffering greatly, because he couldn't save his brother, but Shank is sure Luffy will be stronger. After he overcomes this pain, on Luffy's side, he is still in great agony, because he realizes he is too weak. He can't save anyone, while Jinbei tries to console Luffy, and says Ace's death is not his fault, which makes Luffy angry, so, he attacks Jinbei. But, Luffy is defeated by Jinbei. Jinbei scolds Luffy for being too confident in his strength, but there are many stronger enemies out there, which makes Luffy recall the battle at Marineford, and he realizes there are many strong foes there, but Jinbei says, "Don't dwell on what you've lost, remember what you still have." So, Luffy realizes and says, "I still have my friends," and he wants to meet them again. At this moment, Jinbei remembers what Ace said to him, "I don't have to worry about my little brother anymore, because he has reliable friends." On Zoro's side, he is being surrounded by a pack of baboons. Suddenly, one of the baboons attacks him, but Zoro immediately defeats it. Therefore, the pack of baboons together attacks him. Zoro realizes they know how to use weapons like humans. They keep attacking, causing Zoro's old wound to bleed. So, Zoro is dazed, and he is knocked away by a baboon, making Perona worry about him. Zoro realizes the situation is not good. Suddenly, the pack of baboons begins to feel afraid, because they sense a terrifying aura. Zoro realizes it's Mihawk, on Chopper's side. He's about to be cooked, because this tribe thinks he's food. Luckily, they realize Chopper can speak, so, they release Chopper and apply medicine to him. At this moment, Chopper realizes they are skilled in medicine. But, they say all medicinal ingredients are guarded by giant birds. Seeing many sick people, Chopper decides to help them get medicinal ingredients. The next morning, he hangs on a giant tree to talk to the birds. He thinks the young bird he helped before would assist him. But, the birds say they won't let humans take their treasure, so, they attack Chopper. Chopper immediately uses Rumble Ball to transform and block their attacks. The tribe members come to help him, and they attack the birds. But, Chopper immediately shields them, making him fall into the sea. Luckily, a bird saves Chopper. It turns out to be the mother of the young bird. Thanks to talking to the mother bird, Chopper learns that they like shiny things. The birds think humans want to raid their treasure, while they just want medicinal ingredients. But thanks to Chopper, they resolve the misunderstanding. At this point, Chopper is exhausted. When he calms down, he realizes the people here are friendly with the birds. Suddenly, he receives a newspaper. Reading the newspaper shocks Chopper. On Weatheria Island, Nami is being forced to farm, making her angry because she wanted to study meteorology. Suddenly, she sees the latest newspaper, so, Nami reads it. On Usopp's Boeing archipelago, he has eaten a lot of fruits here, making Usopp overweight. He even refuses to listen to Heracles and continues to eat, so, they also received today's newspaper. On Momoiro Island, Sanji is wearing women's clothing, and he also receives the latest newspaper, making Sanji shocked and wiping off his makeup. At this time, Robin is being helped by the Revolutionary Army. They recognize her as a member of the Straw Hat crew. So, they tell her about today's newspaper. Frankie is on Karakuri Island, which he finds fascinating, because he gets to be inside this amazing laboratory. Suddenly, he also receives the newspaper. On Brook's side, he's composing music for the people here, because they think he's a deity, and he has also seen the newspaper. While Zoro is surprised to see Mihawk here, it turns out this place is Mihawk's castle. So, Mihawk tells Zoro about Luffy's battle at Marineford, which shocks Zoro. Knowing Ace died in front of Luffy, while everyone is also very surprised, and realizes Luffy is in great pain. At this time, Law's crew is still waiting for Jinbei to bring Luffy back. Suddenly, they see a sea monster killed, making them worried. They don't know who could kill that sea monster. Suddenly, they see someone rising from under the sea. It turns out to be Dark King Rayleigh. What surprises them even more is that he swam to this island. Rayleigh asks, "Is Luffy here?" At this time, Boa Hancock is very happy, because she's bringing food to Luffy, and Hancock keeps imagining scenes of her marrying Luffy. While Jinbei has brought Luffy back to Law's place, suddenly, he meets Rayleigh, which surprises Luffy. Even Jinbei is shocked, because he could meet a legendary pirate here, but they don't see Law's crew anywhere. Turns out they have already left. Law realizes that Luffy's name contains the letter D, so, the next time they meet, he will do something very big. At this time, the women of the island are also surprised to see Rayleigh. Turns out, he once saved Boa Hancock's 3 sisters, helping them escape from the celestial dragons. But, she only cares about Luffy, even admonishing Jinbei that this is Luffy's food, and only gives him a little to eat. So, Luffy starts eating to regain his strength, making everyone very happy. At this moment, everyone wonders how Rayleigh knew Luffy was here. It turns out that after the battle at Sabodi Island, Kuma told him Luffy's whereabouts. What he didn't expect was that Boa Hancock would fall in love with Luffy. At this point, Rayleigh asks Luffy, "Are you sure this is the time to meet your friends?" Making Luffy remember the battle at Sabodi Island, where they were completely defeated by Kizaru and Kuma, causing all of Luffy's teammates to be scattered. So, Luffy realizes they're still too weak. Rayleigh then has a proposal for him. On Usopp's side, he tried to run away from this island, but he's too fat, and is defeated by the monsters here. Luckily, Heracles helps him. He says this island is very dangerous. Once you step in, you can't get out. But, Usopp doesn't give up. He is determined to leave this island, even though he has encountered many monsters. Suddenly, the entire island turned into a carnivorous tree, and it immediately swallowed everything up. Luckily, Heracles managed to save Usopp. He doesn't understand why after Usopp read the newspaper, his attitude changed like that. So, Usopp burst into tears and said, "When my friend is in pain, I have to be by his side." Luffy, on Nami's side, she's trying to escape from Weatheria Island, to go back and find Luffy. So, she took one of their boats and left. but the weather here is too unusual. So, Nami can't control the boat and falls off. The people here locked Nami up, because they don't understand what Nami wants to do. She even punched Hades for not letting her go. It turns out Nami stole many books studying weather here. At this point, Hades wonders why Nami wants to learn weather knowledge here. But, after reading the newspaper, she wants to leave. Nami said, "Luffy is my captain. He had to fight alone in that great battle, and had to see Ace die in front of him, so I have to go back to meet and encourage him." Seeing Nami cry made the people here worried, so they immediately released Nami. Unexpectedly, she immediately kidnapped Hades, and continues to flee, shocking the people here, because Nami wants to immediately return to Luffy's side. On the Winter Island, the birthplace of Dr. Vegapunk, Frankie is also trying to leave here, but he doesn't have a boat, worrying both him and the two old men. They don't know what Frankie wants to do, because Frankie also wants to return to Luffy immediately, so he decides to continue infiltrating Vegapunk's research room to find a boat, but this place is guarded by the Navy, thus, he's being chased by the Navy. Finally, he finds a room containing many blueprints. Suddenly, Frankie targets a button, causing the entire research facility to explode, shocking the islanders. On Zoro's side, he's found Mihawk. He asks, "Where's Luffy now?" But Mihawk doesn't know either, so Zoro has to go find Luffy on his own. Mihawk says there's a small boat to the west of the island. Thus, Zoro goes to get the boat to find Luffy. Suddenly, he's attacked by the pack of baboons, and they surround Zoro. Unexpectedly, this pack of baboons mimics Zoro's techniques and attacks him, making Zoro surprised. It even destroyed the small boat, making Zoro angry. On Perona's side, she's very worried about Zoro, so she goes to find him. At this point, Mihawk remembers his fight with Zoro. He realizes Zoro is a strong swordsman, while Zoro is fighting the pack of baboons. Unexpectedly, they know how to use saliva to heal wounds, when Zoro doesn't know how to defeat them all immediately. Suddenly, the baboons become scared. Zoro realizes Mihawk is here. He says these baboons are very strong, because they've been through many battles with humans, so they've learned how to fight. He tells Zoro not to underestimate them, but Zoro is determined to defeat them quickly. Thus, the pack of baboons attacks him. On Brook's side, he's finished writing the music, making the people here very happy, thinking it spells to resist the Longarm tribe. Suddenly, they hear that the Longarm tribe is coming, when they thought Brook's music would work, but Brook says they're just songs, shocking them, seeing everyone worrying, because they think this time the Longarm tribe will take all the women here. Suddenly, Brook starts playing music, helping them regain their spirits. When the Longarm tribe arrives, everyone was ready to fight them. Finally, the villagers defeated them, and captured 3 Longarm tribe robbers. So, everyone is grateful to Brook. But, Brook wants to immediately go find Luffy, to help heal his heart. Suddenly, Brook suggested they release these 3 Longarm tribe members, because he thought he had intimidated them. Unexpectedly, they kidnapped Brook, because they realized Brook would help them make a lot of money. At this point, everyone opposed Rayleigh's suggestion, but Luffy realized he couldn't let his teammates face danger again, so he agreed, and decided to return to Marineford. The next day, Luffy's group hijacked a Navy ship, surprising the Navy, because Luffy, Jinbei, and Rayleigh were all here. So, they used this Navy ship to advance into Marineford. On Chopper's side, he's preparing to return to find Luffy, because he also knew Ace had died, although he really wanted to stay here to research medicinal herbs. But, Chopper didn't have time anymore, so, the bird carried Chopper back, making him very excited, because the bird's speed was very fast. Suddenly, Chopper received a new newspaper, making him surprised. Unexpectedly, Luffy did this. On Robin's side, she's also trying to find a way back to Sabodi. At this point, the Revolutionary Army informed Robin. Turns out their leader, Dragon, had always been searching for Robin, because she was the only survivor of Ohara. So, they suggested Robin meet Dragon. But, Robin didn't have time anymore. She wanted to immediately return to Luffy. Suddenly, they received a new newspaper about Luffy. So, they showed it to Robin, which surprised her and made her understand something. On Sanji's side, he's looking for a boat to help him return immediately. Suddenly, everyone saw Ivankov return, making them happy, because she's their queen. Sanji also thought Ivankov was the queen, so he went to see, which surprised Sanji, because Ivankov is a woman. Although Sanji knew Ivankov is transgender, but he couldn't resist Ivankov's charm. At this point, Sanji asked Ivankov about Luffy. Unexpectedly, Ivankov had returned to his true form, which shocked Sanji. Ivankov didn't believe Sanji was a member of the Straw Hat crew, because there was no picture resembling him, making Sanji angry, but he still insisted on leaving, so Ivankov decided to fight Sanji. If Sanji wins, Ivankov will let him go. He immediately faced Ivankov, but Ivankov intercepted him. He quickly defeated Sanji. Suddenly, Ivankov showed Sanji the latest newspaper about Luffy, which surprised Sanji. At this point, Ivankov talked to Dragon. Dragon wants to gather all the commanders of the Revolutionary Army, because Whitebeard's death will change the world government. While Ivankov is surprised, because Luffy has come to Marineford causing shock once again. On the side of the Marine headquarters, they are very angry, because Luffy dared to return to Marineford once again. Turns out a few days ago, many reporters gathered here to take pictures of the Marine headquarters after the great battle. Suddenly, they saw a Marine ship approaching, making the Marines surprised, because on the ship is Straw Hat Luffy. When they attacked him, Jinbei created a wall of water to block the cannonballs. At this point, Rayleigh also intervened. He only used small bullets to block the cannonballs. They realized he was the Dark King Rayleigh, which surprised them. But Luffy's ship only circled around Marineford. They realized Luffy seemed to be holding a funeral. At this point, Luffy's ship entered the bay. So, the Marines attacked the ship and destroyed it, thinking they had killed them, but they immediately appeared inside. Rayleigh and Jinbei held back the Marines to help Luffy, to help him run to the Ox Bell. Suddenly, Luffy started ringing the bell, surprising everyone, after ringing the bell 16 times. Then, Luffy went to the place where Ace and Whitebeard died, making the Navy too afraid to attack him. At this point, Luffy took out a bouquet of flowers and dropped it into the abyss. The reporters took advantage of this opportunity to snap photos of Luffy. After finishing everything, Luffy's group left, leaving the reporters puzzled, not understanding why former warlord of the sea, Jinbei, and former crew members of the Pirate King like Rayleigh are now siding with Luffy. They realized this was big news, so many newspapers were printed and distributed worldwide. At this point, the Marines considered this their humiliation. The elders of the world government were also paying attention to Luffy, because even Jinbei and Rayleigh are now on his side, and they realized that after Whitebeard's death, the three major powers in the world have become unbalanced, so Blackbeard might become the next Yonko. Sengoku went to meet with Kong, the world government commander-in-chief. Turns out he wants to resign, because he thinks he's old, so he's handing over this era to the younger generation. Sengoku nominated Aokiji as the next fleet admiral. At this point, the news of Luffy still being alive spread worldwide, making Kid very excited. All the pirates from the worst generation have now entered the new world, but the weather in the new world is very harsh. Despite that, they are still eagerly awaiting Luffy's arrival. At this point, Luffy has returned to Boa Hancock's ship. The women here are very curious about Luffy's body. Rayleigh believes that Luffy's crew will understand his message. Chopper, after reading the newspaper, understood Luffy's intentions, making him very happy. Robin has also understood by now, followed by Sanji, which piqued Ivankov's curiosity, while Usopp is still trying to leave the island, but he received a new newspaper, and he also understood Luffy's intentions. Meanwhile, Nami is angry, and she accuses Luffy of being too selfish. On Frankie's side, the old man is worried about him, because the explosion was too big, so he thought Frankie wouldn't survive. Unexpectedly, Frankie is still alive, and he also read the newspaper, but Frankie's face was burned. On Brook's side, he's being shown off by these three. Luckily, they gave Brook a new newspaper, so he also understood Luffy's intentions. As for Zoro, he's very badly injured. At this point, he's also reading a new newspaper about Luffy. However, he still doesn't understand what Luffy's intentions are, making Perona very frustrated. But Zoro still doesn't understand. On Law's side, his crew members are very excited to go to the new world, because they heard that Blackbeard has arrived there. But Law remains calm and waits, while Blackbeard's pirate crew has entered the new world, making them very excited. Unexpectedly, they defeated Bonnie's pirate crew and captured her. He even wanted Bonnie to be his wife, making her angry and kick him. While he was about to deal with Bonnie, they realized that the Navy had arrived. It turns out the person on the main ship is Akainu, making them frightened and flee. At this point, Akainu found Bonnie. It turns out he was looking for her, because she had escaped from the world government's authority. On Chopper's side, he has returned to his tribe, making everyone very happy, and he decided to stay here to study medicine. So, they led Chopper to their library. Unexpectedly, there are many books on pharmaceuticals inside. At this point, Chopper remembered when he was with Dr. Hiralik, and he was told that the world is vast. After that, Luffy invited him to join his pirate crew and help him explore the world at sea. Unexpectedly, they were defeated and separated at Sabodi Island. Chopper realized that Luffy is the one who suffers the most. I will become a true monster. I promise you, Luffy, I will become stronger. On Nami's side, she saw the old men here looking very angry, so she pretended to be cute. It made the old men mesmerized. They even apologized to Nami in return. So, Nami decided to stay here, to learn all about the weather in the new world. Because she's the navigator, she will take the captain wherever he wants to go, and Luffy will definitely become the pirate king. It turns out Nami always remembers when Luffy helped her, so she wants everything to help Luffy. On Frankie's side, they found a secret passage after the explosion, making them very surprised, because this place contains a lot of Vegapunk's research materials, so he decided to stay here. But they were scared when they saw Frankie's face. Thus, he put on a tiger mask. At this point, they wonder why Frankie doesn't want to leave the island anymore. It turns out Frankie's dream is to sail the sea with his own ship, and Luffy helped him fulfill that dream. So, he wants to help Luffy fulfill his dream. Suddenly, the tiger skin was burnt off. Thus, Frankie ran out, making the Navy frightened, because they thought he was a monster. On Sanji's side, he realized the food here is very delicious. So, Ivankov told Sanji, the people on this island are all talented chefs, and the food makes their bodies stronger. So, he asked Ivankov for cooking recipes. But, Ivankov said there are 99 special recipes. If he wanted to learn it, Sanji had to become a woman. Sanji promptly refused, because he is a man and was born to love women. So, Ivankov offered him another chance. He would leave these 99 recipes scattered all over the island. Sanji had to go find it, while everyone else would make him wear women's clothes. At this point, Sanji remembered when Luffy invited him to join the crew, and he was very excited to tell Luffy about All Blue. Finally, Sanji agreed to become Luffy's chef, so Sanji decided to help Luffy become the Pirate King. And he agreed to the challenge. Immediately, everyone attacked Sanji, even though they were very strong. But Sanji was determined to win. On Brook's side, many people are coming to watch him perform. However, Brook remains seated, because he understands Luffy's intentions. So, Brook realizes he needs to do something to help Luffy. And he remembers when Luffy invited him to join the crew. Luffy also helped Brook retrieve his shadow, which made him very happy, because he could continue living, and he decided he would help Luffy. Suddenly, Brook stood up and moved, surprising everyone. So, he immediately started playing music, making everyone dance to the sound of Brook's instrument. On Robin's side, she agreed to meet Dragon, and she remembered her childhood, having to constantly run away because of the world government's pursuit, until she met Luffy. She's ready to declare war on the world government to save Robin. Say that you want to live. I want to live. Take me out to sea with you. At this moment, Robin decides she must be stronger, to be able to help Luffy. On Usopp's side, he's trying to lose weight, surprising Heracles, because Usopp suddenly changed to want to be stronger. He always thought Luffy could become the Pirate King without him, but Usopp was wrong. There are still many stronger enemies than them. So, Usopp decides he must be stronger to help Luffy. Usopp accepts Heracles as his master, making him very excited, and he decides to teach Usopp all his knowledge. Usopp realizes if he wants to help Luffy become the Pirate King, he must become the king of snipers. On Zoro's side, he's begging Mihawk, teach me to become a swordsman, which disappoints Mihawk, because he's asking his enemy, and he thinks Zoro ran away after losing to the baboon pirates. But Zoro says, I defeated them, which surprises Mihawk. So, he wonders why Zoro is asking his enemy for guidance. I want to defeat you. Unexpectedly, this makes Mihawk laugh, because he realizes Zoro has found something more important than his dream. So, he agrees to teach swordsmanship to Zoro. Mihawk realizes, when a swordsman puts aside his pride for others. At this moment, Zoro explains to Perona, the tattoo on Luffy's arm means 3D has been replaced by 2Y, because they had previously agreed to meet again in 3 days. But, now it's changed to 2 years. And this message is only understood by members of the Straw Hat crew. Zoro realizes they're not strong enough to enter the new world yet, so they need time to become stronger. At this point, Mihawk begins training Zoro, and he remembers his promise to become the strongest swordsman with Luffy. So, Zoro is ready to fight. Unexpectedly, among the baboon pirates, there is a leader, and it copied Mihawk's sword technique, making Zoro excited to fight it. On Luffy's side, Jinbei also decides to leave, so, Luffy thanks him for helping him a lot, and he promises to meet Jinbei at Fishman Island. While Boa Hancock really wants to marry Luffy, Rayleigh tells her to take them to the training ground, so, they arrive at Rusukaina Island, north of Amazon Lily. This island has 48 seasons in a year, which excites Luffy a lot. Boa Hancock says she will bring food to Luffy every day, but Rayleigh tells her not to come, to avoid disturbing Luffy's training, which makes her angry, so Luffy and Rayleigh start training, while Boa Hancock is still very worried, because this island is too dangerous. At this point, Rayleigh leads Luffy to a giant cabbage, which is the safest place on the island. No monsters dare to come here, and he leads Luffy deep into the island, which excites Luffy a lot. At this point, Rayleigh says he will teach him to awaken his power, called Haki. Suddenly, a giant elephant appears. But, Rayleigh continues to explain to Luffy that Haki is a hidden power within the creature's body. Seeing the elephant about to attack Rayleigh, Luffy immediately uses Gear 2 and intercepts it, but it's too strong and knocks him away. Rayleigh explains there are two commonly used types of Haki. Surprisingly, Rayleigh anticipates the elephant's attack and dodges it. Rayleigh says this is observation Haki, which can predict an opponent's attack without looking. So, Luffy remembers fighting people who use this type of Haki. Rayleigh says on Sky Island. It's called Mantra. Next is armament Haki, creating an invisible armor layer. Unexpectedly, Rayleigh manages to push back the giant elephant, surprising Luffy. So, Rayleigh flicked Luffy's forehead, causing him pain, because armament Haki can be used to fight devil fruit users, especially Logia types. But, Rayleigh says there's still another type of Haki. Then, the elephant continues to attack him. Surprisingly, Rayleigh just needs to unleash this power, and the giant elephant immediately faints, surprising Luffy. Rayleigh says this is Conqueror's Haki. Only those with a renowned reputation in the world possess this power. But, this power isn't acquired through training. It comes from one's own will, and Rayleigh says, "You've awakened Conqueror's Haki." But, Luffy still can't control it. It made Luffy very amused, and he realizes he's encountered many people who use Haki. At this point, Rayleigh says Luffy has 2 years to learn how to use Haki, so, Luffy is ready for the training session. The next morning, he goes to the giant cabbage, to leave his straw hat there. At this moment, Luffy remembers his dream with Ace and Sabodi, and he remembers his teammates waiting for him. So, Luffy begins training with Rayleigh. Now, Luffy remembered Ace's words. "Listen up, Luffy, we've got to live without regrets, and we'll be freer than anyone else." But, Ace was captured by the Marines. So, Luffy along with the Whitebeard pirates, went to Marine headquarters to rescue Ace. The battle between the Marines and the pirates was fierce, and Luffy faced off against all 3 admirals alone. When he managed to surpass them, he was kicked away by Kizaru, but thanks to the support of the Whitebeard pirates and Ivankov. So, Luffy advanced closer to Ace's execution platform. Suddenly, Garp appeared, blocking Luffy's path, but he immediately defeated his own grandfather. Thus, Luffy met Ace. However, he still had to face Fleet Admiral Sengoku. With just one fist, Sengoku destroyed the execution platform, but Luffy managed to block his fist. In the end, Luffy saved Ace, making him very happy. Unexpectedly, Ace did it to protect Luffy, causing him to be seriously injured. At this moment, Ace said, "Old man, everyone, and you, Luffy, even though I've been good for nothing my whole life, even though I have the blood of a demon within me, you guys still loved me. Thank you so much." Finally, Ace died in front of Luffy, leaving him in immense agony. Suddenly, Luffy woke up. Rayleigh realized Luffy had encountered a nightmare, so he immediately gave him water to calm down. It turned out that after Ace's death, Luffy was in immense agony. But thanks to Jinbei's help, Luffy regained his composure, and Rayleigh proposed to train Luffy for 2 years. At this point, he began instructing Luffy about Haki. Rayleigh explained that there are 3 types of Haki: observation Haki, armament Haki, and finally, Conqueror's Haki. This made the giant elephant faint, surprising Luffy. So, Luffy began his 2-year training. At this point, he remembered his comrades. First, Zoro. After his battle with Mihawk, Zoro promised Luffy, "Until I become the strongest swordsman, I won't lose again." Next is Usopp. He wants to become the bravest warrior of the sea. Then there's Nami, Luffy, help me. So, Luffy immediately defeated the Arlong pirates. Nami, you're my crewmate. Next is Sanji. His dream is to find the All Blue. And he promised to become the chef on Luffy's ship. Then there's Chopper, although he's always seen as a monster. Luffy still wants Chopper to be his friend. After that is Robin. Luffy was even ready to declare war on the world government, to save Robin. Next is Frankie. His dream is to build a magnificent ship, to help Luffy become the Pirate King. Then there's Brook. Luffy helped him retrieve his shadow, making him very happy to be alive. So, Brook agreed to join Luffy's crew. At this point, Luffy wants to become even stronger, and he could protect his friends. The next morning, Luffy continued his training. He was determined to defeat this giant gorilla. Suddenly, he was attacked by a bird. Unexpectedly, Luffy retaliated using armament haki. While he was searching for the gorilla, a black rabbit attacked him, but it was immediately repelled by Luffy using Gear 2, making the black rabbit angry. So, it slapped Luffy and ran away. Rayleigh said that those rabbits have very high defensive capabilities. If Luffy can use armament haki, he can defeat it, and if Luffy can use observation haki, he can sense the presence and strength of his opponent. So, Rayleigh blindfolded Luffy to train him in observation haki. This caused Luffy to fall because he couldn't see anything. Rayleigh said, use all your senses, because if he only relies on his eyes, Luffy won't be able to keep up with the speed of light, like when he fought Kizaru. So, Luffy began to sense, but he immediately got chased by the gorilla and lion, leaving Rayleigh powerless. At this time, in another sea area, the marine forces are protecting the celestial dragons from a dangerous pirate crew. It turns out they were the crew of Burndy World. Seeing his subordinates taking too long to deal with the marines, he ordered the 3 commanders to eliminate them. Very quickly, they managed to infiltrate the marine ship and immediately destroyed one of their vessels. At this point, the captain decided to take action, so he flew into the sky and approached the marine ship. They recognized him as Burndy World, and he immediately used his devil fruit power to turn bullets into giant ones, destroying the marine ship, leaving the marines extremely terrified. So, he continued to jump and transformed into a giant scythe, directly destroying the celestial dragon's battleships. Seeing him defeat the marines in just 50 seconds, made his subordinates terrified. He even attacked his own crew members for not completing the mission within his set time frame. On Boa Hancock's island, she was very worried about Luffy, so she wanted to cook many delicious dishes for him. But Elder Nyan stopped Boa Hancock because Rayleigh had instructed them not to disturb Luffy's training, making Boa Hancock furious. So she decided to send someone to deliver food to Luffy. Suddenly, they received a letter. It turns out the world government was gathering the 7 warlords of the sea again. Elder Nyan realized something serious was happening. But Boa Hancock didn't care, because she only thought about Luffy. On the side of Burndy World, they were inspecting his new weapons. With just one shot, he destroyed the entire island, making his 3 commanders very pleased, because after 30 years of effort, they had finally created this weapon, just waiting for Burndy World to return to carry out their plan. It turns out that when this giant cannon, combined with his devil fruit power, the more fruit, it increased the size of the cannonball by over 100 times, so it could destroy anything, even marine headquarters and Mary Joieuse, making him very pleased. But his brother, Bojack, saw this as not being easy. Bojack worried that the world government knew he was back, because the world government had started to gather the 7 warlords of the sea. But Burndy World didn't know who the 7 warlords of the sea were. It turns out he didn't know, because he had been imprisoned and impelled down for too long. So, Bojack explained, the 7 warlords of the sea are a powerful group of pirates, and they work for the world government. At this point, Bojack had gathered all the information about the 7 warlords of the sea, but he didn't care, and felt excited, because if the 7 warlords of the sea gathered again, then he could take care of all of them. On Luffy's side, he was still training with the gorilla, but he was knocked down by it. Next was a crocodile, and then a lion. By evening, Luffy was very angry, because he still couldn't defeat those 3 animals, so he ate quickly to get back to fighting them, which made Rayleigh happy, and he said, "Don't die." At this point, Luffy blindfolded himself and entered the forest to find the 3 beasts. Suddenly, he caught a whiff of food, so Luffy followed it and discovered a plethora of food. This made him very happy. It turns out Boa Hancock's little sister had brought food for him. Knowing that Luffy was still healthy, made Boa Hancock very relieved. Elder Nyan realized that Hancock liked Luffy to an extent that was beyond cure. While Luffy was happily enjoying his meal, Burndy World found Boa Hancock's two sisters. He immediately attacked them, but they didn't know who Burndy World was. Elder Nyan recognized him. Burndy World is the pirate the world government wants to capture. At this point, Burndy World realized Boa Hancock wasn't there. But, he recognized Sonia and Mari as Boa Hancock's sisters. So, he attacked them, and he knocked them flying to Luffy's location, making Luffy very happy, because he realized they brought food for him. Sonia and Mari were unexpectedly captured by Burndy World, making Luffy furious for daring to attack his friends. So, Luffy immediately confronted him, but he used armament haki to block Luffy's attack, and he immediately sent him flying into the mountains. Suddenly, he used his devil fruit power to throw a large rock towards Luffy, causing Boa Hancock to worry. Burndy World said to her, "If you want to save your two sisters, come find me." Then, he took Sonia and Mari away. Meanwhile, Bojack felt he heard where Luffy's name was mentioned. At this moment, Luffy woke up and saw Hancock and Rayleigh, so they informed Luffy. Sonia and Mari were taken by Burndy World. Boa Hancock realized he was targeting her. Thus, Luffy decided to go with Hancock to rescue her two sisters. But, Rayleigh told Luffy he still hasn't mastered haki. If he goes, he could die. However, Luffy was still determined to go, because they were bringing food for him. Rayleigh realized he couldn't change Luffy's decision, so, he said, "You must survive and come back." On Kizaru's side, they received the news that Burndy World had returned. He even attacked celestial dragons, pirates, and marines. Akainu realized the world government was gathering the 7 warlords of the sea again, to prevent the 7 warlords from cooperating with Burndy World, because 30 years ago, he was known as the World Destroyer, so, the world government sees him as a major threat. On Luffy's side, Elder Nyan also told him about the danger of Burndy World, and 30 years ago, the world government planted spies in his crew, so since then, he hasn't trusted anyone. Suru remembered that at that time, Kizaru was just a rookie. After Burndy World's pirate crew was defeated, he was imprisoned on level 6 of Impelled Down. Akainu realizes that Luffy and Blackbeard inadvertently helped him escape. Suru said that his devil fruit, the more fruit, is very powerful, because it can enlarge objects and increase their speed hundreds of times. At this point, Akainu decided he must capture him. On Burndy World's side, he was planning to destroy Marineford. Then, he would head straight to Mary Joie's, but Bojack opposed this, making Burndy World furious, because he wanted everyone to obey his orders. On Luffy's side, they arrived at Burndy World's location. Suddenly, an island emerged on the sea, making everyone surprised. It turns out that was Burndy World's ship. At this point, Burndy World also appeared, seeing Sonia and Mari being captured, making Luffy and Boa Hancock worried. Burndy World began attacking them. So, Luffy enlarged his body to block the cannonballs. Burndy World continues to enlarge the cannonballs by 50 times, and combined them with haki to attack Luffy, causing him to be injured and fall into the sea. So, Boa Hancock's snake immediately jumped into the sea to save him, making Boa Hancock very worried. Burndy World told her to surrender to him, but Boa Hancock immediately jumped in to attack them. She was very angry for him daring to attack her husband, and Boa Hancock turned Burndy World's henchmen into stone. At this point, Luffy was rescued, seeing Luffy safe, so she felt relieved. When Luffy and Boa Hancock were about to run inside the ship, they were immediately hit by a water beam. Luckily, Luffy managed to pull Boa Hancock back in time. It turns out he was Sebastian, one of Burndy World's 3 commanders, so he immediately attacked Luffy and Boa Hancock. When Boa Hancock tried to use her power to turn him into stone, but he remained unaffected. It turns out Sebastian is blind, thus, he's not mesmerized by Boa Hancock's beauty. Luffy immediately punched him straight in the face, but he could still stand up, so he continued to attack them. At this moment, Buggy was on his way to the world government's gathering place, because he had become one of the 7 warlords. Suddenly, he saw Luffy and Boa Hancock fighting on Burndy World's ship, which surprised him greatly, but Buggy came up with a plan, which was to wait for Luffy to defeat Burndy World, and then he would claim the Marine's bounty, while Sebastian jumped into the water, and he used water bullets to attack them. Seeing him hit Luffy made Boa Hancock furious, so she immediately attacked him, but Sebastian disappeared, and he counterattacked Hancock. So, Luffy blocked the attack for her, making Buggy worried, because he thought Luffy would lose. When Sebastian continued to attack them, Luffy immediately used Gear 3 and punched Sebastian towards Burndy World. So, he was defeated. Luffy and Hancock continued to move inside. When Sebastian wanted to stop them again, Perona appeared, and she immediately drained his willpower. Luffy realized Perona had helped him, so he thanked her. It turns out Perona followed Mihawk here. Suddenly, Luffy and Boa Hancock fell into a trap. While Luffy didn't know where he was, Boa Hancock felt jealous and asked who the girl was. But Luffy didn't remember her either, so Hancock immediately thinks Luffy is having an affair. At this moment, Mihawk was also observing Luffy. On Luffy's side, they were trying to find a way out, and they arrived at a room. Suddenly, Luffy was separated from Boa Hancock, making her worried, while Burndy World appeared in front of Luffy. So, Luffy told Hancock to go save her sisters, and he would fight Burndy World. At this moment, Bojack informed Burndy World that Luffy was the one who survived the Battle of Marineford to save Ace, and he is Garp's grandson, which surprised him. Burndy World asked, "Have you saved your brother yet?" This reminded Luffy of Ace's death, so he angrily attacked him, but he moved very quickly, thus, Luffy couldn't hit him. He then used Gear 2, but Burndy World also knocked him away with Haki. At this moment, he thought Luffy couldn't defeat him. However, he stood up and immediately attacked him with Haki, surprising Burndy World. But he realized Luffy still hasn't mastered Haki. He said, "You're too weak to save your brother." So, Burndy World continued to attack him, and Luffy was defeated. At this point, Burndy World decided to find Boa Hancock. Buggy saw Luffy being defeated, making him very worried, so he decided to help Luffy wake up to defeat Burndy World. Burndy World was reminiscing about when he was surrounded by Garp and Sengoku, thinking his pirate crew would escape. Suddenly, he was betrayed by his own crew members. It turns out the world government had bribed them. Finally, he was defeated by Cypher Pole agents, while Bojack and his 3 commanders fled. So, Burndy World thought he had been betrayed by everyone. On Buggy's side, he was trying to wake up Luffy, while he remembered the battle at Sabodi, where his teammates were separated, along with Ace's death. While Boa Hancock was very worried about Luffy, she realized Luffy risked his life for her, making Boa Hancock very happy. At this moment, she entered a room filled with the smell of medicine. Suddenly, she encountered an old woman. It turns out she was Knighton, one of Burndy World's commanders, and she mocked Boa Hancock for being too young to be a 7 warlords of the sea. Knighton even thought of a way to neutralize Boa Hancock's devil fruit power. When Boa Hancock attacked her, Knighton immediately drank a strange potion, making her feel very bitter, so she was not affected by Boa Hancock's powers. Knighton immediately used another type of medicine to attack Hancock, making her clothes tattered. Next, Knighton used her secret potion to transform her body into a beautiful young woman. Then, Knighton continuously attacked Hancock, but she managed to dodge every attack. Hancock then used her devil fruit power to shoot many arrows towards Knighton. However, Knighton managed to block them. Seeing Knighton so confident, Boa Hancock continued to attack, but Knighton easily countered each move. Suddenly, Boa Hancock mesmerized her, causing Knighton to lose control, so she immediately took a bitter potion to regain control of herself. However, seeing Boa Hancock's incredibly beautiful body, Knighton couldn't bring herself to strike Hancock, and continued to be mesmerized by her. Knighton was forced to continuously take the medicine. Although she had a liking for men, she couldn't resist Hancock's allure. Eventually, Knighton vomited out all the medicine, returning to normal. So, Hancock turned her into stone, because nothing in this world could resist Hancock's beauty. On Buggy's side, he was still trying to wake up Luffy, while Luffy remembered his promise to Rayleigh, along with his comrades, and the words of Burndy World. "Someone as weak as you can't save anyone," helped Luffy wake up, surprising Buggy. At this moment, he was determined to defeat Burndy World. But Luffy got lost. Turns out he fell into a trap set by Gairam, so he immediately used his devil fruit power, and continued to control square blocks to attack Luffy, leading Luffy into his room. Turns out he had eaten the cube devil fruit, allowing him to create and control cubic blocks. So, he immediately attacked Luffy, knocking him to the ground. Although Luffy kept blocking his cubic blocks, he still managed to catch him. Thinking he had defeated Luffy, he then noticed Buggy's group, so he attacked them, inadvertently helping Luffy escape. Buggy realized that if Luffy couldn't defeat Burndy World, his plan would fail. and he saw his followers worshipping him. So, Buggy decided to deal with Gairam, to allow Luffy to go after Burndy World, making Luffy very happy as he left. Suddenly, Gairam condensed the air into cubic blocks, and immediately attacked them. Fortunately, Mr. 3 managed to intercept him, but he was too strong. Gairam turned Buggy into a cubic block, leaving Buggy terrified, because he could only dodge Gairam's attacks. When Gairam was about to deal with Buggy, Buggy used his devil fruit power, accidentally returning him to normal, but Buggy then shrank in size. Turns out his body was being held by Gairam. At this point, Buggy decided to use his secret weapon. When Gairam condensed the air to attack him, Buggy fired a smoke bomb from his foot, helping him regain his body. While Gairam was surprised, suddenly, Boa Hancock appeared and defeated him. Turns out she was looking for Luffy. When the black smoke clears, Buggy's followers thought he had defeated Gairam, increasing their admiration for Buggy. On Burndy World's side, seeing all his subordinates defeated, but he still didn't care, and scolded them as useless. Bojack realized his younger brother had changed a lot, so he asked Burndy World, "Have you forgotten our dream?" At this moment, Burndy World remembered their childhood dream. Turns out their dream was to explore this world, but Bojack's body was very weak, so Burndy World promised to protect him, and they would explore this world together. Then, they set sail, and Burndy World established his own pirate crew. Once, when Bojack was captured, Burndy World's crew immediately rescued him, because the two brothers always trusted each other. Afterwards, Burndy World was wanted by the Marines for 200 million berries. They even attacked the world government's ship, so Burndy World's bounty increased to 500 million berries, and he was fiercely pursued by the world government. Thus, they decided to create a submarine ship, along with a massive cannon capable of destroying everything. But now Burndy World had changed. He wants to destroy this world, which worries Burndy greatly. Finally, Luffy managed to find Hancock's two sisters when suddenly, Burndy World appeared. He decided to defeat Luffy within 30 seconds, immediately attacking him at lightning speed, making it impossible for Luffy to dodge. But Luffy didn't give up. He grabbed onto Burndy's leg, restricting his movement. So, Luffy kept attacking Burndy World relentlessly, but he managed to evade and counterattack, even increasing his speed by 50 times. Yet, Luffy could still stand up. He then used Gear 3 to attack Burndy World. However, he blocked the punch with Haki. So, Luffy also used Haki to fight him. Unexpectedly, Burndy World's speed was too fast. Thus, Luffy couldn't land a hit, and he was struck by Burndy World into a spiky wall. Burndy World then said, "Whether they're teammates or siblings, if you're too weak, you won't be able to protect anyone." On Buggy's side, he found a way out. Suddenly, he saw many marine ships approaching. Akainu ordered an attack on the ship, making Buggy anxious. Meanwhile, Burndy World realized they were being attacked, so he ordered Bojack to use the giant cannon to shoot back at them. But Bojack opposed this decision. When Burndy World got angry, because he no longer saw anyone as his teammates anymore, and they are all just tools of his, including Bojack. When Burndy World intended to attack him, then Luffy immediately intervened, surprising Burndy World. Luffy said, "If you see your teammates only as tools, you're just a miserable wretch." So, Luffy punched Burndy World in the face. At this moment, Boa Hancock also arrived. So, Luffy told her to quickly rescue his two sisters. Hancock immediately rescued Sonya and Mari. Thus, Luffy could focus on fighting Burndy World. Then, Luffy used Haki to fight him. Unexpectedly, this time he hit Burndy World. Suddenly, he blamed Luffy for abandoning his brother to die, causing him to lose focus. So, Burndy World knocked Luffy down. But, Luffy still tried to stand up and said, "Even though I couldn't save my brother, I still have teammates waiting for me." Thus, Luffy continued to fight against him. Unexpectedly, he managed to knock down Burndy World. He realized that the more Luffy fought back, the stronger he became. Luffy continued to use a barrage of punches to attack him. So, Burndy World immediately fought back. Luffy kept using his fiery punch technique to attack him. It turned out that this technique of Luffy carried the will of Ace, and delivered a powerful blow to Burndy World, causing him to crash into the spiked wall. Finally, Luffy had defeated Burndy World, so he immediately went to find Hancock. On Buggy's side, he was sneaking away from the ship, and Boa Hancock was very worried about him. Meanwhile, Burndy World had regained consciousness, but he realized he couldn't escape anymore, so he decided to retaliate against the Marines, and he apologized to Bojack. At this moment, Bojack realized he still resented his teammates for abandoning him, so Burndy World began to activate the giant cannon. While Luffy still hadn't found a way out, Akainu immediately attacked to stop Burndy World. But he had increased the cannon's power by 100 times, and fired at the marine ships. Seeing the colossal cannonball, the marines were terrified. Luckily, Mihawk managed to cut the cannonball in half just in time, ensuring the safety of the marines. This surprised Burndy World, but he too had exhausted himself and collapsed. Bojack realized they had failed, but he still wants to set sail with his younger brother. Meanwhile, Boa Hancock was still very worried about Luffy. Then, Burndy World's ship exploded, leaving Boa Hancock shocked. Suddenly, Luffy appeared in the sky, so he jumped onto Hancock's ship, making her very happy to see Luffy alive. Mihawk also noticed that Luffy had escaped. At this point, Luffy returned to continue training with Rayleigh. He said he had taught Luffy all the basics of hockey, so he had nothing more to teach him, and Rayleigh decided to return to Sabodi. Now, Luffy realized that a year and a half had passed, so he decided to continue training for another 6 months. Then, he would return to reunite with his crewmates. Thus, Rayleigh departed. Finally, 2 years had passed. Now, Luffy had completed his training. Thus, he returned to the giant white turnip to retrieve his straw hat. While the gorilla and crocodile were fighting over food, the lion threatened Marguerite when it saw her. Suddenly, Luffy appeared and said, "She's my friend." This made them frightened. It turned out Marguerite had come here to pick up Luffy. So, Luffy bid farewell to these 3 animals, as they had helped him train. Meanwhile, Boa Hancock was thinking about marrying Luffy. But Luffy said, "I won't marry you." So, Luffy set sail for Sabodi. Meanwhile, Rayleigh was waiting for the Straw Hat crew to return. They felt like the 2 years had passed quickly. Suddenly, the first person appeared. It turned out to be Zoro, which made him very happy, because he was the first one. The next day, inside a bar, Nami overheard information about the Marines. It turns out that after the battle, Sengoku resigned, and there was someone to replace him as fleet admiral. Suddenly, she heard news that the Straw Hat Pirates were recruiting members, which excited the pirates here. But they only recruited pirates worth over 100 million berries. Suddenly, fake Straw Hat Pirates appeared. Meanwhile, Brook had become a famous singer, with the nickname Soul King, helping 3 Long-Arm tribe members earn a lot of money. So, he began performing for everyone, making the people here very happy, while Sankin was very angry, because he realized that today Brook would leave. So, he decided to call the Marines. On Sanji's side, he had also arrived at Sabodi. As soon as he saw women, Sanji became thrilled, because he had been on the transvestite island for too long, so they bid him farewell. But Sanji was very happy to escape from that hell. On the side of the fake Straw Hat Pirates, they are attacking weaker individuals, because they are seeking individuals with bounties over 100 million berries. He even used Dragon Sun's name to threaten them. At this moment, he realized that there were 2 very strong individuals. Those were Caribou and Korobu. There are bounties of 210 million and 190 million berries. Suddenly, he saw Nami, so he wanted her to drink with him. But Nami flatly refused him, leaving everyone terrified, because they were so terrifying. Seeing Nami still rejecting him, causing the fake Luffy to appear very angry. When the fake Nami was about to finish off Nami, Usopp appeared and attacked her, summoning a man-eating plant to capture them. When Nami realized it was Usopp, Nami was very happy. At this moment, Usopp confidently declared he had become a true warrior, because they don't want to stay here with these imposters any longer. Nami immediately led Usopp away. Suddenly, they saw a dark cloud overhead, and Nami struck them with a very powerful lightning bolt. Luckily, they were still alive, so they were determined to revenge Nami. Meanwhile, Robin was being followed, but she managed to escape. At this point, Frankie returned to the Sunny ship, and he noticed that the Sunny ship didn't have a single scratch. While Chopper wanted to go find Luffy, suddenly, fake Luffy attacked the people here, because he wanted to find the 2 who had beaten him. Suddenly, the real Luffy appeared, and he accidentally bumped into fake Luffy, making him very angry and telling him to stop. Luffy realized he had encountered trouble, because before arriving at Sabodi, Boa Hancock had given Luffy a fake beard, to avoid attracting attention. She even prepared 50 outfits and 1,000 meals for Luffy, making Elder Nyan angry because it was too much. So, Boa Hancock had to leave some behind. At this point, she wanted Luffy to leave without saying goodbye. Luffy said, "I still want to meet you again," making Hancock blush. and she thought Luffy wanted to propose to her. At this time, fake Luffy picked a fight with the real Luffy, on Sanji's side. Upon hearing that Zoro was the first to arrive, it surprised him. And Sanji also realized that Duval had helped them protect the Sunny ship. At this time, Rayleigh was eagerly looking forward to meeting Luffy, because he wanted to know how much progress Luffy had made, while Sanji was only thinking about Nami. On Chopper's side, he had seen Zoro, Sanji, and Robin, so he immediately chased after them. At this moment, fake Luffy was asking Luffy, "Do you know who I am?" And he told Luffy to kneel down and apologize to him, making everyone around unable to say anything, even threatening Luffy continuously, because he didn't want to cause any more trouble. So, Luffy immediately apologized and left. Unexpectedly, he pushed fake Luffy again, thus, he attacked him. But, Luffy managed to dodge the bullet, and he immediately used Conqueror's Haki, causing the entire fake Luffy crew to pass out, while everyone was surprised, because they didn't know what Luffy had done. On Chopper's side, he was still following the group of fake Zoro, but they found him very familiar, so they immediately took out wanted posters, and realized it was the real Chopper. Thus, they decided to chase away fake Chopper, and tempted the real Chopper to follow them. Suddenly, fake Robin was kidnapped, making Chopper worried and wanting to rescue her. But, they said they would find Luffy first, so, Chopper decided to follow them, while Sanji was out buying food to cook for his group. But, upon seeing a beautiful woman, he became entranced. Suddenly, Sanji saw an old man looking scared. He said that a green-haired person had disappeared. It turns out Zoro had earlier found the old man, to borrow one of his fishing boats. But, Zoro mistakenly boarded a pirate ship, so, they submerged into the sea, heading towards the New World, making the old man worried and unsure what to do. This shocked Sanji, who scolded Zoro for being foolish. But, Sanji assured the old man that he wouldn't die. Suddenly, a large ship emerged from the surface of the water, making everyone surprised, because the ship had been split in half. It turns out Zoro had cut this ship in half, putting an end to the pirates' dream of reaching the New World. At this moment, Zoro realized, "I boarded the wrong ship." On Robin's side, she found the Sunny ship, making her very happy, because the Sunny was still safe. Suddenly, Frankie also appeared. As soon as he saw Robin, he proudly showed off his new cyborg body, but Robin wasn't interested. At this moment, Robin noticed that the Sunny had been coated with a layer of coating. Frankie said that this was Rayleigh's technique. On Brook's side, he was still performing for everyone to watch. Meanwhile, Chopper had encountered fake Luffy, but he thought this was the real Luffy, making Chopper very happy. However, fake Luffy was puzzled. Why did he faint? At this moment, fake Zoro informed him that Robin had been kidnapped, making Chopper very worried. But, fake Luffy didn't care, and decided to ignore her, making Chopper angry. Chopper couldn't understand why Luffy had changed like that, while he was very resentful towards Usopp, Nami, and Luffy, so, he was determined to take revenge on them, immediately making Chopper extremely disappointed. Thus, he decided to go alone to rescue Robin, while the Marines were still monitoring them. But, the Marines also thought they were the real Straw Hat Pirates, so, they immediately reported to gather all the Marines, to prepare to capture the Straw Hat Pirates. Sentomaru also mobilized the Pacifista to capture them. He was determined this time not to let Luffy escape. On Nami's side, she was buying a lot of clothes, to prepare for their next journey. She even pressured the shop owner to reduce prices by up to 90%. On Chopper's side, he was very sad, because he saw everyone had changed. They didn't even care about Robin's life or death. Suddenly, Usopp and Nami found him, making them very happy to see Chopper again. At this point, Nami informed Chopper that they were the fake Straw Hat Pirates, making him angry. But, Chopper was still happy, because they had met their group again. On the side of fake Zoro and Sanji, they were searching for Chopper. Suddenly, they saw Luffy. They recognized him as the person their captain was looking for. But, Luffy thought they were the real Zoro and Sanji, so, they led Luffy to meet their captain. On Zoro and Sanji's side, they were arguing. Zoro was the first to arrive, making Sanji uncomfortable, because he kept being called number 7 by Zoro, so both of them started fighting. At this moment, many pirates had gathered, to prepare to join the Straw Hat Pirates. The Marines were also monitoring them. They realized that this place was gathering many powerful pirates. Even their bounties were very high. Suddenly, Caribou spotted the Marines. On Brook's side, he had finished performing, making everyone cheer enthusiastically. At this time, Caribou captured the Marine, and he realized that the Marine forces would soon gather here. because this Marine had reported to the headquarters, so he immediately took out his weapons to attack the Marines. Even they wanted to bury him alive. Suddenly, fake Luffy appeared, making the pirates happy. At this moment, fake Luffy said he would become the Pirate King, urging everyone to join his pirate crew, which excited everyone, while fake Zoro and Sanji were leading Luffy to their captain's location, although they looked very strange. But Luffy still believed they were real. On Brook's side, he noticed that Marines were surrounding the place, so he decided to perform one last time. Suddenly, the Marines began to attack, and announced to everyone that Brook was a member of the Straw Hat Pirates, surprising everyone. It turned out that it was Sankin who had informed the Marines, because he didn't want Brook to leave. On Usopp and Chopper's side, they had returned to the sunny ship. Seeing Frankie made them very excited. At this time, Nami and Robin saw Rayleigh, and he informed them about the current situation. On Brook's side, he wanted to perform one last time, before he returned to being a pirate. Suddenly, Brook thanked Sankrin's group for helping him a lot over the past 2 years, and Brook declared to everyone, Luffy will definitely become the Pirate King. Then he began his performance, making all the audience excited. They even hindered the Marines to let Brook perform on the stage, while Sankin was reminiscing about memories with Brook, making him conflicted, because they realized they couldn't keep Brook anymore. Suddenly, as Brook's performance ended, the Marines realized he had disappeared. On Luffy's side, he were led to the whereabouts of the fake Luffy. On Rayleigh's side, he informed everyone Luffy had arrived on this island, which made them very happy. But Robin was afraid that Luffy would cause trouble, so Chopper said he would go to pick him up. On Brook's side, he had escaped, thanks to Duval's Rosy Life Riders crew coming to pick him up, while Zoro and Sanji were fighting, surprising everyone around. They didn't know how to stop both of them. Suddenly, Frankie called Sanji. He said that the Marines had taken action, and Luffy was also nearby, so they decided to go look for Luffy. On Luffy's side, he had been brought back to the place of the fake Luffy. He told everyone that this person had mocked him, so he wanted to execute Luffy, to warn everyone, while Luffy didn't understand what was happening, and he still thought Zoro and Sanji were real. Suddenly, the Marines appeared, surrounding the pirate gang, immediately causing the fake Luffy to worry, so he ordered Caribou to use the Marines as hostages, making the Marine soldiers terrified. Unexpectedly, Caribou didn't obey the fake Luffy's orders, and he promptly killed the Marine soldiers, surprising everyone. While the Marines were very angry, the pirate gang remained confident and fought against the Marines, because Straw Hat Luffy, the captain of their crew, has a bounty of 400 million. The fake Luffy was furious, because no one listened to him. At this point, the Marines realized there were some very powerful pirates, while Caribou had used his devil fruit power. It turned out his devil fruit was the swamp fruit. Suddenly, the fake Luffy announced, whoever could kill the most Marines would become his right-hand man. Suddenly, pacifistas appeared, making the pirate gang afraid. Suddenly, the pacifistas detected the real Luffy, making the fake Luffy terrified. Unexpectedly, the pacifista effortlessly took down a pirate with a bounty of 88 million with a single blow, helping the Marines regain confidence. At this moment, the fake Luffy tried to escape, while the pirates were being continuously defeated by the pacifistas. Suddenly, the fake Luffy collided with Sentomaru, immediately making him fearful, while the pirate gang was very intrigued, because they were about to witness the strength of Straw Hat Luffy. Sentomaru couldn't understand who he was, so he introduced himself. I am the son of the Dragon Revolutionary Army commander, grandson of the Marines hero Garp, and I am wanted with a bounty of 400 million berries. But before he could finish, Sentomaru struck him hard on the head. Straw Hat is not scum like you. This surprised everyone, because Straw Hat Luffy seemed too weak. Then, Sentomaru ordered the pacifista to identify him. Turns out he was Damaro Black, only wanted with a bounty of 26 million berries. This shocked all the pirates, because they had been deceived by this imposter, thinking Luffy had died. Sentomaru announced that the real Straw Hat Luffy was here. He ordered the pacifista to attack, but Luffy managed to evade in time, causing his disguise to fall off, surprising the pirates, because he looked exactly like in his wanted poster. At this point, the Marines were determined to capture Luffy. Sentomaru said, I have changed in the past 2 years. Now, I have officially become a Marine. And he ordered the pacifista to attack. However, Luffy easily dodged and said, too slow, surprising Sentomaru. Then, Luffy activated Gear 2. As the pacifista continued to attack, Luffy jumped up and struck him down with just one punch, leaving all the pirates astonished. Sentomaru realized he had used haki. Luffy realized he couldn't stay here any longer, so he immediately ran away. Suddenly, he ran into Zoro and Sanji. Luffy realized this time they must be real. Suddenly, another pacifista attacked them. Thus, Zoro and Sanji immediately defeated him, leaving the pirates astonished, because they were indeed the real Straw Hat crew. Luffy was very happy to see them again. Suddenly, Luffy stopped. It turns out he realized Rayleigh was also here, making the Marines fear. Rayleigh was very happy to see Luffy had grown much stronger. So, Luffy thanked Rayleigh for everything he had taught him over the past 2 years. Luffy promised Rayleigh, "I will definitely become the Pirate King," which made Rayleigh very pleased with him. But the Marines continued to pursue them, so Luffy had to leave immediately. At this moment, Rayleigh remembered the days of teaching Luffy about haki. Every day they trained, and Rayleigh had witnessed Luffy growing stronger day by day. So, Rayleigh shouted, "Reach for the top." Seeing the Marines still chasing after Luffy, Rayleigh blocked their path. "I won't allow anyone to hinder my disciples' path." Seeing Rayleigh carve a deep trench into the ground, the Marines were terrified. But there's still another group of the Marines' troops blocking Luffy ahead. Suddenly, they lost all their willpower, leaving the naval forces puzzled. It turns out that Perona came to their aid. As soon as they saw Perona, Sanji became delighted. Perona immediately scolded Zoro for getting lost, making her search frantically everywhere. While Sanji was overjoyed, Perona promptly sapped his willpower. Suddenly, a gigantic bird appeared. It turned out Chopper came to pick them up. Meanwhile, Brook was heading back to the sunny ship. Seeing everyone made him very happy. They thought Brook would sing, but Brook asked, "Can I see your underwear?" So, he got hit by Nami. Nami realized he hadn't changed at all. Now, Luffy and the others had returned too, making them very happy, because they finally met Luffy again. Suddenly, Sanji caught sight of Nami and Robin, causing him to have a nosebleed that shot up and fell into the sea, making Chopper and Usopp very worried, because Sanji lost a lot of blood. Meanwhile, Luffy was thrilled to see Frankie's upgraded cyborg body. Suddenly, they were attacked by Marines, making Usopp anxious. Luckily, Boa Hancock appeared to help them, and she had her ship block the Marines. Robin recognized her as Boa Hancock. She's known as the Pirate Empress. When they heard Robin say she's very beautiful, Usopp and Brook immediately looked and realized she's a goddess. So, Sanji also woke up immediately to see Boa Hancock. Unexpectedly, he turned into stone right away, while the Marines didn't know what to do, because Boa Hancock is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, so they couldn't attack her. Now, Boa Hancock returned and signaled to Luffy to leave. Everyone realized she came here to help Luffy, making them very surprised. While Sanji knew Luffy had been taken to the Island of Women, which made him angry, and blamed Luffy. "Are you really serious about training?" Now, Usopp felt strange, because they didn't see Marines chasing them anymore. On the Marines' side, they were being hindered by a swarm of giant insects. Turns out, Usopp's master has come to help him. On another side of the island, it was raining, causing all the Marines' weapons to get wet. It turned out the professors from the Weatheria Island had helped Nami. Now, Frankie activated the sunny ship's coating layer, filling the air inside and creating a large bubble. While on another side of the island, the Marines were losing their willpower, because Perona had helped Zoro stop them. Suddenly, Chopper saw 2 Marine ships approaching. But, the giant bird immediately tore the sails of the Marine ship, when the Marines attacked them. Then, Sanji intervened. However, upon seeing Nami, Sanji began to bleed from his nose again. While many Marines on the island were fighting against those with the heart of a maiden, making the Marines frightened, but also making Sanji feel cold shivers. At this moment, Luffy spoke to everyone. "Thank you all for enduring my selfishness for the past 2 years, and Luffy shouted, "Set sail," making everyone very happy. So, the sunny ship has submerged into the sea, and headed towards Fishman Island. Today's video ends here. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, to support Onichan in the next videos. Thank you for watching, love you always.